you ready? Okay.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town of Manlius Planning Board meeting for February 24th, 2025. We are in person and hybrid online as well. The first item on our agenda is the approval of our minutes from our February 10th, 2025 meeting. If there are any items for discussion or otherwise, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, motion made by Judy, seconded by Don. All in favor? Any opposed?
I would abstain.
Okay, and Rich is abstaining, since the majority of the project, was. Okay. All right, so the minutes are approved for February 10th, 2025. All right, the next item on our agenda is, for, Tom Kinsella, and this is, Salt Springs Road in Fayetteville. This is on our agenda for a zone change recommendation to the town board, for, from restricted agriculture, RA, to Natural Resource Recovery District, NRRD. And these are tax map numbers 097.01-03.1, 097.01-03.2, and 097.01-0.03.3. So if you would like to make a brief presentation about what it is that
Sure.
you'd like to do. Okay.
Sure. Good evening, Mike Fogel, attorney. I'm representing Kinsella tonight. As you mentioned, we're here tonight seeking the planning board's recommendation in connection with an application to the town board to rezone properties at the quarry, 11.8 acres to NRRD, which is Natural Resource Removal District. We did submit a figure to the planning board at the planning board's request, providing more clarification on exactly the properties that were subject to zone change. So,
And actually, before we, I meant to say too, before we start, just so everybody understands and the public watching understands, that this is part of the existing quarry site.
that's exactly right.
And not the one that was a new site that was discussed previously. So this is separate from that.
Right.
And,
Yeah, this
is
is
the existing site.
yes, this is to add additional reserves at the existing Fayetteville quarry. And I just want to
behind you, Mike, if you want.
Oh.
There you go.
great. So you can see the area that is part of the rezoning request is that hashed area. I mentioned 3 tax lots. That 11.8 acre area, as you can see, stretches across those 3 lots. So it's not the entirety of those lots that are being sought to be included in NRRD. It's only that hashed area. And one thing I'll point out as I go through, but I just wanted to give a little just background on the quarry just in general. So before I get into more of the details, but so this is obviously the existing quarry has been in operation for over 50 years. The stone from the quarry is used in connection with road building and other types of construction projects in the town, the county, and surrounding areas. The existing reserves at the Fayetteville quarry are nearing depletion. So that's really why we're seeking this zone change to be able to find those additional 11.8 acre area. The reserves in the ground for a quarry are literally the inventory, just like some business might have it in a storeroom or in the back room. The inventory for this business is literally in the ground in the form of stone reserves. So that's why it's important that Kinsella be able to access these reserves to continue to operate. So that's really the purpose of this expansion, is to give the company a minor increase in reserves to maintain the continued operation. What's important, and we want to make sure that everyone understands, no aspect of the operation is going to be changing as a result of this. The operations are going to continue as they've been. this just gives the company, like I said, additional reserves to continue to operate. So we wanted to make sure that was clear to the board. In addition to requiring the zone change and a permit from the town board, this also requires a modification to the company's mining permit, the state mining permit that they have from DEC. So that modification application was also submitted to DEC to add this 11.8 acre area. That review is ongoing. DEC has made it clear that they're not going to finalize their review and approve that modification until the town board decides to rezone the property. The town board is actually the lead agency for seeker in connection with that application. So before this can be granted, in addition to requesting a recommendation from this board, the town board needs to approve the rezoning. They need to approve a special permit under the NRRD provisions of the zoning law, and then DEC has to issue a mining permit modification. So there's several layers of review in connection with this. So getting back to the map, as I pointed out, that hashed area is the area that we're seeking to have included in the NRRD. You can see running around that area, we have it located as an identified as the approximate location of security safety berm for town of Manlius seeker review. So during the last modification to the quarry, the town board granted a rezoning. And as part of that, there was a seeker review conducted, which involved preparation of the environmental impact statement. And as part of the findings that the town board issued, they recommended that berm being installed. So that berm runs that whole stretch and varies in height from about 12 to 15 feet. So that's obviously going to remain in place. And the property that's proposed to be included is all within and encompassed within that berm. So what's important is that berm, which provides a buffer area, for purposes of visual and reducing noise impacts, that's still going to be in place. And the area that's going to be mined is going to be within that berm. So we think that's an important factor that shows that any potential impacts associated with the modification are going to be mitigated. So we wanted to make sure that the board was aware of that. The property that's to the west, that's all within that dark line, is all owned by Casella. Those aren't owned by other neighbors. That's owned by the company. With respect to the changing season subdivision, I wanted to address that because before we came back in front of the boards, we worked very closely with Changing Seasons to address their concerns that they had with respect to this rezoning application. And Tom met with them multiple times, and we actually entered into an amended agreement with Changing Seasons to address some of their concerns. And I just wanted to talk about a few of those because it resulted in certain concessions and agreements that the company agreed to abide by in connection with this rezoning application. One of those is that the area that's being sought to be rezoned to NRRD was reduced by an acre in size. And also the company agreed to limit depth of mining in this area to 760 feet above median sea level instead of going down to 700 feet. So that's a significant concession because it resulted in a reduction in the amount of reserves that the company is going to be able to access. So that was important for Changing Seasons. The company also agreed to some additional buffer areas and increase areas that would be maintained as forever wild and other restrictions on use of the property once mining ceases. So that was important. And that's been documented in an amended agreement with the Changing Seasons. There are also other protections that the companies agreed to include. There's going to be an additional seismograph monitor placed within the Changing Seasons subdivision that's going to measure any vibrations that may occur from blasting at the core. There's also, as part of that agreement, there's going to be what's called a crack gauge monitor that's installed at one of the homes within the Changing Seasons subdivision. That's going to, prior to blasting, there's going to be a pre-blast survey of the home, which is basically an inspection of the home to document the existence of any cracks or anything like that. And that crack gauge monitor is going to then monitor whether there's any cracks or any issues with respect to that particular home from blasting. So that important protection that's going to be put in place. The other thing is that there's already certain air monitors that are in place around the quarry that provide real-time monitoring to confirm that there's not any air quality issues associated with the quarry. As part of the agreement with changing seasons, there's going to be up to 3 additional air monitoring locations around the quarry that are going to provide additional real-time air quality monitoring to ensure that there's no air quality issues associated with the operation. So that's another aspect of protection or mitigation. The other point is that the town board last year reinstated the quarry commission. It used to be called the quarry monitoring committee, but that was disbanded. So the town board reinstated the quarry commission. It's going to have certain members, including some neighbors, including the town supervisor, Mr. Kinsella is on it. And the point of that is to make sure that any issues or complaints that are raised by neighbors or whoever that, you know, allege that there's impacts associated with the quarry or make any sort of complaints, that there's this body that's going to be basically in charge of vetting those complaints. And as part of that, Kinsella is committed to responding to any complaints that are made through this quarry commission. So we think that that's an important thing because, you know, it gives a forum for any complaints to kind of to be vetted, be responded to by Kinsella, to be, you know, investigated by this quarry commission. So, I mean, based on all that, we're happy to answer any questions. We're obviously hopeful that the planning board will make a recommendation in support of the rezoning application. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Yes.
How much longer will the reserves represented by this 1 acre addition provide to the company?
So it's a good question. One of the issues with mining is that it's all really driven by market demand, you know, how big jobs are or what needs to be supplied from the operation. But based on estimates, assuming certain rates of market demand, the company thinks probably between about 5 to 8 years of additional reserves.
This addition requires its own separate permit from the town.
So the town has a special permit that's required for mining within the district.
15519.
Yep.
If it's an existing permit, I assume you would not then need to do the engineering opinion and get written permit from the town. If it is requires its own permit, I assume it does.
So there's a permit for the existing quarry. We're actually in the process of renewing. It happened to be coming up for renewal.
Right.
So we've been in front of the town board, I think twice already on that. There was a public hearing on that renewal. The town board's in the process of updating that permit. And once, assuming the rezoning is granted.
So this would be included.
Yes, that permit would be
current
basically
permit
amended to be included within the existing permit. Correct.
Jamie, the town board is doing a special use permit on this project?
Yes.
It's a different, it's not like
It's a
our
different-
typical special use permit, yeah, it's under,
It's required.
Right.
yeah, and the town board is
In charge.
in charge of that, not us, yeah.
This is just for our own information, it's got nothing to do with this. Is there a reclamation bond on the board?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, DEC requires a reclamation bond to be in place. DEC also has, you know, approves a reclamation plan for the site.
Okay.
So if for some reason the site wasn't retained, obviously, you know, that's not gonna happen. But DEC has the ability to call that bond and to perform a reclamation.
So that's to get a new bond or extend the current bond or?
Yeah, by adding additional acreage, DEC before they issue the permit does a new calculation for what they want the reclamation bond to be, the financial security.
Right.
And then Kinsella will have to go to its bonding company, get that bond increased, submit it to DEC, and then DEC will issue the permit.
That was just for my own information. I
Thank
was curious.
Got a couple of questions. I'm relatively new to the board for about a year, so I was wondering, one question I had was, when you had the initial agreement for the board, why weren't those 11 acres added as part in that area? Originally?
There were some concerns from the neighbors that led to the line being kind of pulled in. One of the biggest issues is that the couple of parcels to the west, those weren't owned by Casella at the time. So it's kind of the be considerate of those neighbors' concerns. The company agreed to pull that line back, but now that they own those lots, and we've kind of addressed any concerns that the changing season subdivision had with respect to it. we're
Any of the
requesting that it
initial
be put back in now.
So any of the initial concerns are now overlooked or taken care of?
Not overlooked. I think we were always confident that there wouldn't be any issues associated with that modification, but to kind of address those concerns, the company moving forward agreed to pull that line back.
So the properties, I know you mentioned, so the properties in the dark pool are owned by Casella, so there's like
Yes.
that one property, and I'm kind of looking at Google Maps here.
Yeah, so
Like
zero.
Lewis Lane, is that a house? Is that like light gray area, a house? On Lewis Lane that's not owned,
Where exactly are you looking?
so like in between, sorry, Lisa, like the light gray, jump further down, sorry. So there's like the biggest parcel there that's in dark, yeah, that light gray one to the left of it. That's right here. Yeah, so is that Kinsella River or no?
No, that is Lewis Lane, those are properties that we've owned, and then when we spin them off, we sell them with covenants in there, but that large piece of property we didn't own it, so we increased that setback to be consistent with all the other setbacks until we bought the property, which is now, obviously we don't need protection for ourselves. Yes, that is two homes out in Lewis Lane, which is right away through our property. So
Continue on the slide. So it looks like the parcels that you're showing right now, rectangular vertical parcels that you have, these are owned by you.
the dark line all the way over goes over to Dugan Road on the west side, comes up very spot along South Springs Road.
So my question is, will there be coming a time when you will be adding also to the query and coming requesting additional land from the land that's in those parcels?
No, so those other parcels have covenants in them that don't allow us to expand into.
It's the same parcel, right, where you're expanding?
No, the other parcels. So
No, I'm not talking to the lot, I'm talking about the three triangular shapes that are the parcels up there, three verticals. No, go down. Right there. In the middle, there are three triangular shapes where you're asking for additional space to it. You own those parcels, like, right?
You mean outside of the burn?
On the south side of, or, oh,
Outside of the burn. I think he means like north,
Those,
beyond the burn, is that what you're talking about?
yeah, those parcels, those portions of the parcels are subject to the agreement with changing seasons. We can't go there. Can't go there.
yeah, so, good. And the last question I have.
It's a written covenant,
Yes,
if they filed.
well, it's been signed, it's part of the agreement, hasn't been recorded yet.
But it's going to be recorded,
Yes,
so it's a covenant that will run with these parcels.
yes, exactly.
How does it describe? I'm gonna say north because it's up. How does it describe, because those parcels are large, is there a legal description that covers those lots that can't be further developed?
Yeah, so the covenants we had the same surveyor who surveyed 11.8 acres provide survey drawing for those portions
Okay.
of the property.
It's really not worth it. The topography there drops right off. See, the bottom of the quarry, the changing seasons, neighborhood almost is, if you could take that, there's nothing there, that drops off.
And Dave, just to try to answer one of your questions, because I've been involved in gravel beds and mines. This is not unusual to go to DEC and to get the limits of the mining pushed out further, because as time goes on, you run out of gravel or whatever you have. And the other thing is you don't wanna give the DEC a bond for your entire limits, you push out and, you know, so it's probably financial, but,
So that's what answers my question. Thank you. My last question is, you're coming with your request right to the burn. Does that jeopardize the burn?
No, I mean, we're talking about solid rock, and we follow very closely with reclamation too. As we mine along, we backfill with overburden against the wall, and it's all sloped. The cliffs aren't left there, you know, that's part of the reclamation process.
But the burn won't be damaged if it is, you'll take care of it.
No.
No, what?
Well, if it was damaged, we would take care of it, but it's not. Don't do that.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions too. When you said so the renewal permit is kind of like a chicken and egg thing, so they need, DEC wants the zone change before they will give the renewal permit, and is that separate from the town board's
So,
permit?
so
or is
yeah,
it
so as part,
intertwined?
okay, yeah, so as part of the application to add the 11.8 acre area,
Mhm.
we had to go to DEC to modify the permit. So after that application was submitted to DEC, they coordinated lead agency, and it was determined that the town board would be the secret lead agency for purposes of the modification. So DEC is kind of more or less kind of in a holding pattern until the town board completes the rezoning and that super review for the 11.8 acre area. And then DEC will kind of complete its technical review of the application.
But we will get that before,
Right,
so we
right,
have to
yes.
make our recommendation without.
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
And then I was driving along Salt Springs today, and I'm looking at the map. And so it's like, I mean, you can tell it's been there for 50-some years, because those trees on that berm are huge, which is great. But then, so like that straightaway, the straightaway part on the berm that's in like the brownish area. And then when we get to the hatched area, tonight, just like me driving by, not being able to go on the property, but driving by, like the trees get a little more sparse. So when you said, in the agreement with changing seasons, there's gonna be additional buffer areas and, forever wild, there's a part along the berm that just doesn't, the trees are sparse, they're non-existent. Is the plan to put additional trees that, you know, in time will keep
No,
it
that-
screen or no?
The original berm, which is, from Jonathan Road to the, heading, west to the first, parcel, that was built in the early 1980s, and it was criticized, the trees looked like, they're all put up there, they were in rows, and it looked commercial and stuff. So when we built this, the second part of the berm, that was part of the quarry monitoring committee, and we sat down, and we decided to try and make it look more natural and not make it look, that's why we've got some of those smaller berms with little rock walls out front with trees there to soften the berm, but still have the effectiveness of the berm. So that was determined through, that was one of the things that I think the town board recently, that was one of the things I think they might have pulled out of the special use permit was the berms, because that was a big discussion when we started building them. And that was part of the purpose of the quarry monitoring. So that was their recommendation, and, I think we just
I don't
got,
think it looks commercial. I think it like, you know, you cannot tell that there's, if you were just looking at it, tell that there's something.
yeah, most of them, like I said,
Something
there's
back
a
there,
couple of smaller ones in the front,
Yeah.
just to soften, so you don't look through the thing and see this big mound of, you know, you've got the smaller ones with the trees out in the front, just, you know,
Okay.
soften it. That was the idea.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
When did Kinsella begin operating corn?
That's a great question. When did the company first start out?
Well, my grandfather bought it in 1939, not necessarily as a quarry, but as a farm almost.
shortly after taking topsoil and wall stone for things like that. And the first rock was crushed in 1967. But prior to that, it was like one of the pick and shovel operation, digging around little holes here and there for flat stone, build stone walls for houses.
Second question, you mentioned there's gonna be a crack detection system or sensing system in one house. Is there a history of that being an issue, or is this purely preventive or speculative perhaps?
One of the idea of it is a lot of people don't realize how much their house actually moves by environmental factors and things like that. People, just their daily activities of opening and slamming doors and things like that. And they found that if I put this crack monitor on there, it shows people, again, I think it's gonna be in real time, if they can log on there, how much things change environmentally when it goes from, 60 degrees down to 20 degrees, and how much your house is moving when you're your hardwood floors crack and things like that. And then because blasting is can be startling because it's less than a half a second, but people feel a little something, and they think that there's something happening in the house, and they start looking around, they say, oh, there's a crack, I'm not sure if it's there. And this is to assuage those concerns and to show them, hey, your house is really moving. There's things happening with daily activities, with environmental factors and all those types of things. And here's what it does when you're blasting, and this is an outside service, an independent service that's paid for from another thing, because everybody always thinks, hey, you're paying that expert, they're gonna tell you whatever they want because you're paying them. This is an outside service paid by through a grant and some other stuff. No, that one was.
Yeah,
But it's just to show people what's happening with their home.
So the history of all events in the house, whether or not something's related to your operation can sort of be sorted out.
yeah,
And
exactly.
put in context.
So this provides just objective data, or if there's a complaint or an issue, we can look at that data and see if it actually has anything to do with the court. So it's actually good. It's good for the company and the town and the neighbors, because there's a company that's called Vibrotech that's going to be involved in doing this. So it's good. We think it's a good thing.
Arnie or Eric?
Questions at this time?
Thank you.
So I just have a bunch of random questions, so I'll probably jump around a little bit, and I hope that that's okay, and I'm not sure who's the best person to answer.
We'll see,
them.
depending on the question.
So, well, I'll just go down some notes I took from your presentation. DEC wants the town board to be the agency for the mining permit for the zone change.
So DEC, this is already established, but as part of the application, DEC asked, did the lead agency coordination, and the lead agency was determined to be the town board for the mining permit.
For the mining permit.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Wow.
they're the, yeah, I know.
Okay.
So they're the secret lead agency for the mining permit modification, and obviously for the zone change. Yeah.
Is that because they're still working out the details of the updated permit?
I think DEC's view of it was that because it required a zone change in connection with the modification application, that it made more sense for the town board to be the lead agency. So that was already established, I think, 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yes.
About the zone change, in the permit, I didn't look it up in the code myself, but, maybe Doug knows or somebody else, but isn't the mining, the NRRD, I'm not sure if I'm even saying that correctly, because it's not a special use permit, it's its own special thing, but isn't that an overlay versus the zone change? So which is it? And would you be requesting to change the zone if that's the case of the whole parcel? Or would it be a subdivision line or something to separate out the area that's going to be the mine? Or does it actually remain RA and then it has an overlay of this?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, I read it that it was an actual zone change. So what we've done is included, meets and bounds description that will be, just part of the local law changing the parcel, the NRRD So to me, it's a zone change, so it doesn't, it's not RA with mining overlay. I don't read it that way. I read it as
It's
a
a
zone
zone
change. Yeah.
The whole parcel?
Nope,
No,
it's gonna be, it's only that part of the parcel.
Yeah.
It's a split parcel, but it's also, um, you know, at some point in time, if someone decides it's great to live next to a quarry, then you know, I suppose they can subdivide
When it's all
it
done,
up.
I mean.
Right, yes, so it stays all right.
Okay,
right,
so it stays RA,
outside of,
Outside of,
outside of
Yeah.
that.
outside of that area.
Could that part, as part of the reclamation process? For future development, would someone have to come back and change it to residential or farm or, you know, industry of some other kind? Okay. The designation of the, dedicated, you know, buffers and green space and forever wild, whatever, how is that gonna be recorded? Is that something that does the town have a practice or a method for taking lands and making them that way?
Well, that's been documented as part of our agreement with changing seasons, so there's already an easement and restrictive covenant that's recorded with the county.
So that's,
And that's being amended to include additional areas as part of the agreement between company and changing seasons. Hasn't been recorded yet, but there's an amended easement and an amended restrictive covenant that talks about those issues.
is there any discussion about that, running to benefit the town as well, that restricted covenant, or is the town doesn't want it, or hasn't been discussed?
I don't think it was discussed initially. I think there was some language in there about it being potentially enforceable by the town. Yeah,
Is there the paperwork?
yes. Oh, well, I don't know if it was part of I know we sent it in, but it wasn't part of the actual application. We sent it in afterwards.
so would those areas be something going forward the next time, you submit something that you could show on the map?
We can do that.
Talking about the forever wild areas, buffer areas and so on and so forth, yeah, they're color coded, and I think the stuff in town was on board and as well.
Yeah, we can.
I mean, a lot of stuff was discussed in terms of this forever wild area. There was discussion on, okay, you guys want it, does the town want it, then there's hold responsibility. Okay, you want to extend the park from Dugan Run Party, okay, you want people riding their bikes behind your house, well, you know, it sounds like good ideas until you think it all the way through, and, so they just, decided on the restrictions on development for the privacy purposes is really what it boils down to.
I was just curious how it was going to be documented moving forward, but if you could show that, it would be helpful to visualize the context of the site within the larger area.
Okay. Can that,
It lends a fuller picture, I think, to the plan going forward, because as you mentioned, reclamation, and I don't think a lot of people realize this, but the reclamation happens right along behind as things are getting done. And so it'd be nice to see, to understand what's reclaimed and what's active. You know, with regards to, you know, where are you done? If you only have a few years, you know, left, say 10, where are you done and how is it moving forward? Because I'm assuming in the next 10 years, we'll be focusing on right near here and here, as in the additional 11 acres. Or where are you actively mining and where have you already reclaimed?
Yeah, we have that, I mean, we have,
I mean, the aerial sends a little bit of a picture, but
yeah,
yeah, we can add that.
with the monitors that are being added as a lot of the concessions for the, with the agreement with the changing seasons neighbors. And then looking at where the newest work is, this kind of builds on that last question of where are you testing? Where are you going to be blasting? and working. If a lot of the existing monitoring processes are happening in changing seasons, but if the next 10 years, say, the mining is gonna be happening much further south and closer to these other residences, which are on most of those lots, at least on the south side of Salt Springs, would you consider putting similar monitoring closer to where the actual blasting is gonna be happening?
If we have permission to go on the property, we can set up, we have, the blasting company comes with monitors also. But again, the reason the other monitor was, just to clarify and to support it, that, you know, an independent person is monitoring it.
Sure.
Results, but yeah, we can move that around. We used to move it around a lot, and then the data that was, it was skewed because you'd get a complaint over here, and the monitor was over here, even though it was closer. So we decided on one, again, that was something to the court monitoring committee, to keep it at one consistent point all the time, just for the consistency of analyzing the data. But it could be, yeah, so if you're heading to the south there, certainly go, you know, I'm sure the Harrises that live across the street, Rocket or the Rock Acres Farm.
Yeah.
You know, he called me today, wanted to know if there's anything we could do to help, you know, I'm sure he'd be fine with us doing something. I don't, that could hit, yes.
Okay.
I'd like to ask a question, because what's before us tonight? What's before us tonight is a zone change recommendation. I don't know how what's been reclaimed already has anything to do with making a recommendation for a zone change. I'm trying to just focus on what our duty is tonight, so I'm just simply asking the question.
I'm trying to get a picture of what's going on and what will change as a result of the zone change if the project moves forward, because they will be moving into a new area.
But I guess,
Of knowing whether, and that's why I led into it, is that if the monitoring and the testing is happening up in changing seasons, but they're not working up there anymore, would it be possible to move some of that stuff down below?
that's another example of what I would say. We've got a committee that focuses on this type of issue, exactly this type of thing. I don't know why we're getting involved in it. I think we should stay focused on, does this zone change make sense or not? And I think we're getting off into areas that we have a committee, or I think it's a committee. Yeah, that would give them recommendations on monitoring and some other things.
I'm sure they will.
Pardon?
I'm sure that they will.
I
It's part of their,
But that's what I'm saying, that's what I'm saying, what I'm saying is because we have a committee that would.
I'm trying to understand now that I have them in front of me to ask these questions. Because I want to, I would like to understand.
Okay, and I know you're on the committee,
I'm not.
sorry, maybe,
I'm not on the board monitoring committee.
Different than that.
no, I think it was there.
Right.
If I'm wrong, I apologize.
So I feel like this is just the information gathering part so that we can come back obviously later and you can bring back some of these pieces of information.
Is there a blasting schedule? In other words, like how far in advance do you know if you're going to be blasting?
It needs to be scheduled with, there's a separate state licensed blaster that comes in and actually does the blasting. How far out do you usually schedule it?
Usually only a few days.
So you don't really even know. Like, let's say,
No. No, like the old man, like, we blast 12 and 3 every day, we blast them in the good times, 10 or 12 times a year.
but there's nothing like at the beginning of the year, you think it'll last in March or April or anything like that.
It varies depending on the demand varies quite a bit, so the blasting schedule varies. Quite a bit, yeah.
Well, I noticed the report from the committee that you're referring to was posted last week on the town website, so it's full of a lot of information that's really helpful and actually answers a lot of those questions. About who does what and when, and it includes all the, complaint reports from the previous year and everything. I think you only blasted like 4 times maybe last year, or something like that, so it's not,
We're out of snow.
it's not like it's every day.
Right.
And so that was really helpful to,
And those blasts are monitored by seismographs. DEC can request those results. They review if there's ever any sort of complaint. DEC will ask for the records to review them and confirm that they're within blasting limits that are in the permit.
yeah.
So
So is there, and this is something that I'm asking because I have been asked by people in the area, and I would like to ask you yourself. Is there a provision in the settlement that was made with the Changing Seasons neighborhood? And is it their HOA or is it other neighbors as well that prevents them from speaking about zone change because of the settlement that they agreed to?
They can't oppose it. They can't like sue or challenge it.
Okay.
Frank told everybody that didn't read it and did some of the names of Salt Springs on Saturday. He explained the whole settlement. I don't know if he gave a copy of it or not. He explained it. That's what some of the Salt Springs did.
So does that include people along, I'm not saying that that's business, that's what you do. Does that include people along Salt Springs?
No.
Okay. And there's one house there along Salt Springs that's on the north side of the road. Is there a limit in how close you can get?
There's state limits, and we own that house.
Oh, okay.
So we sold, no, we used to own it. We sold with covenants, making people aware of the quarry in the future. It could expand and all types of things in that covenant. If we're gonna touch a piece of land and then sell it, we have to make sure we're protecting the settlement, spend money. That house is one of the houses we sold.
Tom, there's been a request, if you don't mind, would you join Mike up at the podium?
Oh.
So, because people online sometimes have a hard time hearing with our system, if you're not speaking from there, if you don't mind. Thank you. And speak loudly, sometimes it's hard to hear for anybody watching
Gotcha,
online,
gotcha.
if anyone's watched online, so, okay. Erin, do you have any other questions?
Only just a clarification. With regards to the water, because I was involved with the water along there for many years now. Do you draw off of the municipal water for your water usage?
No.
So will you need new wells as you move south, or will you be able
No.
to reuse your existing wells?
Our wells are used for dust suppression and things along that nature. And our plant, we're not proposing to move or anything, we're just gonna extract the stone from this location, bring it to the plant, all the processing, all the distribution. Nothing there is changing.
None of that's changing.
Just keep in mind, we're adding 11 acres to 83 acres that's existing, This isn't anything new. We're not proposing to change anything in our operation, the size of it or anything else, if we didn't have to come here and stand here, nobody know that anything was changing. We're gonna be, 2.5 years, I think, we're into this zone change to add on 11.8 acres to existing quarry. We closed the quarry this year, this winter, first time in 55 years, because we don't have with the product there. We're standing here, we're trying to get some stuff done, and things just keep getting pushed down the road here. And we've worked with the neighbors, we've worked with the town, I think we're happy to answer questions and stuff and like reclamation, your reclamation questions, they're all good. And part of that, we want to reclaim as we go along because we have to bond it, and until we get it, and the DEC has to come in and they have to accept that as a claim before they release any of your bonding money. So, you know, the idea is for us to keep going. They think, you know, they like that concurrent reclamation with mining, and, but it seems if we do use a fair amount, like even though we're going over here, we're still gonna be operating the, you know, the crushers and things like that at the same spot, so it's really hard to reclaim that, but there are areas, but, you know, this is, like I said, this is, you know, from a planning standpoint, we're bolting on 11 acres to 183 acres that are there. I just see it as a small, you know, we're just looking to, and here we are, you know, everything you try and do just takes forever, money, and I don't know. It's
Tom, I
tough.
talked to some of your neighbors, Lord Harris is one of them, he's a good friend of mine, and he says that he's been a very good neighbor and that we're together.
Well, they've
Please remember that we have a responsibility also.
I understand.
Do our due diligence for everybody concerned and ask the questions that are relevant. It's not a personal thing, and it's not because it's bureaucracy, it's because that's how you protect the constituency. So what we're trying to do is making sure our due diligence, so that nobody doesn't dot an I, doesn't cross a T, unless we take a look at it. If there's an effect on it, that somebody overlooked, it's our job to make sure we point it out. So as long as you're doing a good job with it, like I said, people have said, you've been a very good neighbor for a long time. But the fact remains is we're trying to do what we can. So when they ask you a question, it's not personal.
No, I understand it, just like I said, it's just, well, you know, it's nothing new, it's just business, quote unquote, as usual, as he was saying, you know, our inventories are permitted reserves. So that's, yeah.
Thank you for explaining all of that stuff to me and everyone else who is listening or will in the future. I think it's really good to get the right stuff out there, and you know, we'll make a recommendation at a different meeting, but
Yeah, so, thanks, sir. Doug, do you have anything to add or any questions for Mike or Tom before we?
No, I'm fine. I think you're doing a good job describing.
Okay. So
I'm
we
familiar with
have
their operation. So,
Yeah, so we've heard a lot of information. Thank you for answering our questions. We do have one more meeting in between now and when the town board takes this, so we'd like to absorb what we've heard this evening and make a decision at our next meeting, which is March 10th. I'm looking at Lisa to make sure I have the date right. And then the town board meets after that, so they'll have our recommendation in time for when they're making.
Public hearing.
Yeah, for the
I
public
just
hearing.
want to make
Will
sure
we
we stay
have-
on that schedule, that's all.
the updated permit available. So I know that they're making changes to the existing permit, which you're adding to this project, just adding it into, as I would
We
make that.
won't
makes
have
no
that
sense.
yet. What they're doing is, and Jamie could maybe add to this, but what they're doing is as part of the renewal, they're updating some provisions that are like obsolete or whatever, but it's not to include this additional area just yet. It's just to renew that existing permit.
Yeah, so, so if there's anything else that we asked it for, if possible, if we can get it in time to review before our next meeting, I think there was just one item, it sounds like, right? That,
When do you need that by? This Wednesday? Okay, that's fine. We just want to make sure we're on the schedule.
Right.
For the
Yeah,
public
so the
hearing.
deadline for March 10th is technically Wednesday, this coming Wednesday.
Is that the max?
Wednesday.
And so what, just so,
Wednesday by 3:30.
yeah, just to clarify, so what you're looking for is to have basically that map, but you want us to include the areas that we've agreed to with changing seasons added on to that?
I think that would be helpful to
Okay.
understand, and, you know, if you're,
Yeah, I don't,
We
some of
might-
us, I think some of us don't necessarily need that information, but, I see it, so, you know, but we will be making a decision unless anything else changes,
Okay.
by our next meeting on March 10th.
Fair enough.
just be a color.
Okay.
But no, thank you for sending that map.
Oh, we actually
It's a
realized
lot-
that was very
It's a
helpful.
lot clearer than the survey map when we were trying to figure out what was what.
Yeah, no, I
So I
think it's helpful.
appreciate it, thank you.
We'll use it for the town board hearing.
Okay.
So thanks.
All right, thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you have any questions in the meantime, Lisa can help you.
All right, great,
Okay,
thanks.
Thank you. All right. The next item on our agenda is Syracuse Podiatry, Dr. Ryan D'Amico, at 7085 Manlius Center Road. This is on the agenda for an initial presentation for our parking lot expansion. And the tax map number is 062.03-31.5. So I see we've got someone here to speak on behalf of the applicant to let us know what you would like to do at this site. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Neil Zinsmeyer, Naparella Consulting. We are the site engineers for this project for RLD development. The location is 7085 Manlius Center Road, behind the Kinney Drugs. Simply put, we're looking to expand the parking lot to add 13 more spaces for the office use that is there now. This is the neighborhood shopping center district. There are no changes to the building itself, no user changes. This office, it will remain office, size will remain the same. The tenants that are there just need some more parking spaces. So again, we're adding 13 more spaces to what's there now to accommodate the tenants. We submitted a layout plan, you see it here, and as well a grading plan. You can see the drainage and landscaping. We added some trees around the perimeter of the proposed parking lot. More than happy to answer any questions.
Across the lot line?
No, this, you can see the purple on here. I don't know if easily distinguishable. That's 7085 Manor Center. We're within that property. Maybe zoom in here.
Yeah.
There are two parcels here. 7075 to the south, which is a smaller
Yeah.
office building. And this is 7085. It's a little bit bigger, 4,300 square feet of office space, which there's an attorney's office and a medical billing office in there now. And they just need some more. No, please. 7075 is the podiatrist. That's the building to the south.
Oh, so this is it.
This is 7075.
Okay.
We're solely on 7085. It's the office, an attorney's office and another.
What's the parking? Yeah, what's the original park? Which business is the original parking for?
7085 was all.
And which is what business?
It's tenant space, medical billing.
So not that.
Correct.
Even though that's the name of the application.
They own both.
Correct, yes. It's under actually RLD development, which is Dr. D'Amico, Syracuse Podiatry. He owns both parcels separately.
Okay,
But this application is just for 7085, the building to the north. And I apologize for the confusion. The applicant should actually be RLD development, which is the
that
current
should be the
owner.
name of the project.
Yeah, the project is
RLD development parking expansion.
Yes, same owners, different parcels,
That
different
might eliminate your
businesses.
question.
It does, that's why I'm gonna keep my mouth shut.
And it's not a stupid question. We actually had some back and forth. Dr. D'Amico was here as well, and I had to get clarification as well. He purchased both properties from the Hart companies at that time. But this is just for the tenant space for 7085.
I did have, I just wanna make sure, do you know what the lot coverage is now and would be with the proposed park?
With the proposed parking, it is highlighted on C2.
It is, okay,
It's 75 is what is the maximum.
Yeah.
We're proposing 34% now. The lot's bigger than it was. A lot is unusable to the north, because it's a steep grade.
Okay.
So the lot is,
so it's 34 now or would be 34?
it will be 34 with the proposed.
Okay, all right, that was really good. And then the other question I had was, in looking at the neighborhood shopping zone, which this is.
Yes.
The other thing that it mentioned is pedestrian access. So I'm just wondering if there's any, if you guys have thought anything about pedestrian access in and around the parking lot. Like, for example, we've got town center, which is a little difficult at times for pedestrians to get around. That, I know this is at the town center, but I'm just wondering, from that proposed parking lot to the two buildings, possibly a kitty drug, if someone's waiting for someone and I go to kitty drug. Like, any idea, any thoughts about pedestrian access?
We can look into it. The kind of tricky thing is here, these two parcels are owned and there's lots of maintenance agreements from the Kenny Drugs owners and the vacant lot next door. So anything we would want to do on our property, we would have to get permission or easements from either Kenny Drugs owners or M&T Bank or even down to the Signal. There's lots of cross access easement, lots of utility easements here.
But with it, okay, and so going back, sorry, just to make sure I understand correctly. But they own both the buildings.
Yeah, 70, 75, and 78.
Okay, so,
But beyond that are other owners.
okay. so
Down
the-
to Manlius Center Road,
Right,
there's
right.
shared access between all
Right.
parties.
But the parking, so this parking, the intent of it would be to entertain both buildings.
Possibly not, I mean, the goal is really 70, 85.
Okay.
For the employees of 70, 85, obviously we can't really prevent somebody else from parking here. But we could look at sidewalks within,
Like
between these two
crosswalk,
parcels.
Yeah,
There already are.
from the parking to the
Um,
building.
Do I have the aerial up there?
There's sidewalk that runs along the front of both of those parking, or both of those buildings, and the parking that ends up dead ends into it.
Yeah, I'm talking about like the proposed parking, like all the way over to the west side. Getting over, back over, just maybe some designated.
Right.
Just a thought, yeah, striping or something, just a thought. Less concerned now that we know it's not.
No, it's dietary office staying where it is.
But anyway,
Separate businesses.
yeah, just something that we're, as the planning board and the neighborhood shopping, we are supposed to, consider pedestrian access.
Understood. We are just kind of limited to these two properties.
Have you considered an REA between the two properties? I mean, not necessary, but if you thought some people will use the new parking lot, the front building. It's not necessary, I'm throwing it out there because you own both properties. Now's the time to do it in case you sell one.
I mean, in the future, if one was sold up, I'm sure that would be taking place. As I talked to Dr. D'Amico, his clients, again, what problems, they need to be close to that building. So, I mean, that would be a requirement of the board, we would look into it.
No, I don't think so, it's just, in my mind, it would make sense business-wise. We have to use both parking lots for both buildings, but it's not a necessity. That's a business decision. That you guys.
And we'll look into it. And Jamie, can we even give the same ownership properties?
Yes, called the declaration of easement.
Declaration. We'll look.
Just, you put it in place in case you do sell one, and it doesn't get missed. If that's your intention, if it's not, then it's not.
I have a couple quick questions.
Please.
Is there a master plan of development for this shopping area that would preclude something potentially happening in the future? They didn't always do it.
Not that.
Okay,
Again,
that's the answer.
yes, short answer.
I'm assuming that, and the part two of that is because sometimes there's the drainage is figured out for a whole area, right?
Yes,
And-
so, go ahead.
I'm assuming that you'll work with Doug to make sure the additional impervious is not gonna impact somebody downstream.
Yes, and I did talk to Doug, we spoke, and we can continue to speak. When this property was originally developed, it was all developed with the Kinney drugs and these two parcels, and the vacant parcel here to the west, which is still retained by our companies, and there was a drainage easement here for that master plan 20 years ago, and that shows up on the survey as well.
Okay.
You see the drainage easement.
Yeah, there's a bunch of lines, so like,
It's,
the line rates, or the
Yes.
dash lines are.
it was developed all together, but once it was sold off and cross access, there's a lot of utility factor to share. There are lots of utility drainage easements, water easements, sewer easements.
So was it planned that there would be X amount more impervious in these areas that it's taken care of?
I tried to get a copy of the master plan from 20 years ago, to no avail, right? We couldn't find anything on record. But I would imagine if this was planned out properly 20 years ago, that was taken into consideration when it was developed under the Hart companies. I just don't have any master plan from them, but you can see there's lots of drainage easements.
Yeah.
Where this goes to a ditch, which then goes to a drainage basin between the Dunkin' Donuts, somewhere on the west side of the plaza. So there is an existing stormwater basin there that was probably built out for a master plan at the time, 20 years ago, when the Kinney drug was built.
So we have no complaints from the area, I talked to Mr. Ziegler, and he'll work with me to make the parking lot net zero for impact to the existing property.
Excellent. My final question is, are you having to add more handicap parking? Are you recalculating that? How's that being handled?
We're required to have two, and that's what we have.
Got it.
Yeah, and that's existing up to the building now. The first couple of handicap spaces, first couple of spaces closest to the front door
Yeah, I see them on there.
are handicapped and will continue to be handicapped to meet code.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if there's no further questions, I would entertain a motion to even set a public hearing. Lisa, when was the date for the public hearing? It's March 24th.
As long as we have common comments back, but
We submitting the county in this? Okay. If they'll.
and this doesn't have to go, it doesn't have to go.
Yeah.
Please don't
No, I
sign it.
said it.
We'll try.
What I was asking, I didn't ask for lighting. Usually I was asking about that. You're gonna add any more?
We do not have any site lights proposed.
We'll let Doug talk about that as to what. Like, what.
Yeah, we can, I mean, there is one on the end of the parking lot now.
Once in the past, somebody went out and took a look at it when it's nighttime to see if there's enough coverage in lieu of trying to recreate a photometric plan from stuff that you don't have.
Right here, if you can see, I'll just highlight it. There is one existing pole. and then
Okay.
back end, but I'll talk to Rob. We'll
Yeah.
See what we can do.
Okay, thanks. So you're ready, what was the date?
Okay, so. Okay, motion made by Aaron, second by Rich, to set public hearing for March 24th. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll do the public hearing March 24th. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. While we are transitioning to the next item, which is a public hearing for Woodland Hills, we need to just take a quick break while everybody's getting set up. People are transferring over. And then we'll be right back.
Thanks. Yeah, answer? Yeah, of course.
Okay. Right, thanks everybody. The next item on our agenda is for the Woodland Hills subdivision. This is on the agenda for a public hearing, 5280 Old Lane, Fayetteville. The tax map is number 104.01-39.2. And Lisa, I just want to check, did you send it to county?
Yes, I resent it tonight.
Okay, so we're good, but we haven't heard back yet. Nice, okay. Okay, so we are going to, we will proceed with the public hearing. There's some things that, we want to hear from the public and everything first, and then, so we will not be doing seeker this evening. We've received various letters in the past, but as of most recently, we've received letters from Burns and NASA, and then most recently we've received letters, and this is up to about 5 o'clock p.m. tonight, from Krell, Code Lane neighbors, Slutsky, 2 letters, Loprinski, sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, Winter, Oliver, and Hollander. And so those were what came in before 5 o'clock p.m. tonight, when we were actually able to look. So if anyone would like to make a motion, if we don't, to waive the reading for the public hearing.
Make a motion to waive. Notice of public hearing.
Okay, motion made by Rich, second by Judy, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries to waive the reading of public hearing, and now I'll take a motion to open the public hearing. Okay, motion made by Arnie,
Second.
second by David, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. The public hearing is open. Like to keep it to about 3 minutes, if there's a lot of people who would like to speak. Like I said, we have read through all of the letters that we received before 5 o'clock p.m. tonight. So if, when you do speak, we'd ask you to please come up to the podium and please say your name and address, and try to keep it to new information. I'm looking like Chris wants to definitely give a brief presentation, just so everybody's on the same page of where everything is at, before anybody comes up to speak. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Chris Danaher from Hancock Estabrook. I'm an attorney in Syracuse. I'm here with Scott Freeman tonight. And I'll keep this very brief. This has gone on a long time. So really, I want to just continue where we were last. We're at now a 17 lot subdivision, you can call it 16. Essentially what the town, I think we're all in agreement, was there was a separate lot created for the drainage district. We're working with the town on that. We're waiting for feedback from the town board on a number of different aspects to finalize that, to get that continued proceed forward. So that's where we are with this drainage district with the town board. The other thing that came to light in our last meeting was that we needed a variance for lot 9. So we went before the ZBA, and the reason was it was below the 40,000 square foot threshold. We went before the ZBA, we secured a variance for lot 9, and so that was addressed and taken care of. So since then, and then we made the submittal to this board, understanding that we're trying to work through some things. There's things that need to be addressed. Our hope tonight is to hear from the public. Hope we'll address those concerns, as well as to get feedback from the town. We're trying to get times and dates so we can have feedback on our plans and address the comments from the board, the engineer for the town, and we can get a date to keep proceeding this forward. That's really where we are from that perspective. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? Okay, thank you, Chris. Okay, I'll go kind of row by row. So is there anybody, I know you, is there anyone in the second row who would like to speak? Oh, yeah, we'll put, have Lisa put the plan up. Anyone in this, Alice, in the second row?
I mean, I can start out just for the,
Yes, please come up to the podium and speak loudly so that everyone watching, who's watching, I know we did get some letters that people couldn't make it in person, so I know there are people probably online.
okay, thank you. So, I'm Paul Massa, and I live at 612 Churchill Court. And so this property, Woodland Hills, is flooding our property. And so our property is one of the most impacted from the development, as it's in plain view, and any of the environmental changes that occur there will affect us in some way. And I don't know how many years ago it was now, but we had the last public hearing, we talked about, problems that I could potentially see in creation of a large pond. I was, however, encouraged, if I'm correct, that the town of Manlius would be taking over the maintenance of that pond. Is that true?
Yeah, Doug, do you want to explain that process so that, because that is quite a change from the last.
Yeah, there has been a discussion that, there would potentially be a stormwater district, encompassing this, subdivision. The applicant is in the stages of developing a map plan and report, like Mr. Danaher discussed. It sounds like there has been continuing discussions with the town board. So a map plan report is just what it says, right? It would be a map, and it would be a plan of what the cost for the district would be, and then a final report of how and when it would be maintained. Some of the discussions that were had, based on some of the input we've received from the public, once this new plan with the 17 lots has been in front of the board, was trying to put buffer zones between the existing properties and the properties, the lot, I don't know what the number would be, but the one with the ponds. Chris, that's an area we talked about dedicating to the town, right? Because those ponds would be dedicated to the town.
That's correct. That will be its own lot. That will be deeded to the town.
So what we talked about, Mr. Nessa, was those lots contingent to the ponds. You can see like behind your house, a triangular area that would be dedicated to the town, to be a buffer area that the town, Supervisor Deere has been engaged in these discussions to make that some type of a buffer area so that it would address your concerns of, looking out on that. The applicant has been working with the town.
So anyway, that's my main concern was, potential, health problems to the pond. Maintenance that will turn into a swamp. Mosquito problems emerging, types of vector-borne diseases, which can happen if a pond is left, unmaintained. So if we had some sort of assurance, that the town is gonna maintain that body of water, new body of water.
That's the intent there.
But
I mean, Chris and Tom have indicated that.
I mean, will that be written in stone by the time this project is approved? It sounds like it's still.
I would think that we would have, even if we were approved, we'd be having a contingency for the drainage district, which would include the ponds, be accepted by the town. In
Yeah,
other words, the town will own the ponds.
Yeah, that's
if the
my
planning
understanding.
board were to do if the planning board is to do an approval of this project, the intent would be that drainage district and what we've discussed,
Right.
would be a condition of the approval.
Okay, so it's a comprehensive plan to maintain the pond and also act as a buffer for downstream flooding, essentially.
Yes.
It's a comprehensive plan.
Yeah,
So what
because
you'll
it's part of
see,
the drainage district.
and I didn't bring it tonight, but what Tom's group has done here is they have a stormwater pollution prevention plan.
Mhm.
And that also would be incorporated into the district. So that would be the recommendations for maintaining. Now, once that's taken into place, that would be the minimum that needed to be done in part of stormwater district. The town currently has 3 stormwater districts where they do this on a continual basis, so
Will there be an aeration system available?
I'm not sure. The stormwater pollution prevention plan I looked at did not include one,
Okay,
right? I don't
because I
know.
had heard that that was part of the
We did discuss
consideration.
it, we discussed it a few meetings ago, because we talked about having to put in the electrical and.
It's not in the current stormwater prevention
Okay,
pollution.
is that something that we can request as neighbors?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Let's start
To
Aeration.
Aeration.
I think in a couple of meetings ago, we had a discussion about it. We just haven't had an opportunity to address it in the plans yet. Okay, so we can expect that. You can expect.
Well, I think it's more important to figure out if that's a critical component to the functionality of that type of pond.
Right.
It's not
Well, we're-
necessarily
yeah, I
like
just-
you
I
put
just
an
expressed-
aeration in there and it's already,
Yeah.
they're designed to function in specific ways with specific
No, I get
levels.
that.
And so I hesitate to say that it should be definitely
Well-
investigated to see if it's beneficial.
It definitely should be
It's not
discussed.
required, we discussed adding it and a little more detail on it, we're leaning towards a solar unit, so we don't have to burden more of the homeowner.
I think that needs to be included in your map plan and report for the town to review. It would be a decision that the town would make. As it stands right now, it's not included and it meets the regulations. These things, it's up to the district. It would be another added district cost.
Because the district would have the
Traditionally-
responsibility of maintaining that.
Traditionally, the town did not maintain the aerators in their ponds because the regulations don't require them.
So like Beard Pond, for instance, it has an aerator, the town does
That's the
not.
village.
That's village.
That's the village.
Yeah. Yeah, the initial thinking behind the drainage district kind of came out of our discussions with the planning board. Just knowing that there are 16 homes, so for an HOA that is, their primary responsibility would have been stormwater. To a lot of us, it just wasn't realistic that 16 homes would take that on and actively maintain it. And speaking from someone living in a development where that does not happen, with 80 some homes, we thought it was in the best interest that then the town would take that over, whether it's maintained by the town or contracted out, it's the town's responsibility as part of the drainage district and stormwater. And to, keep an eye on that piece of property as well and have access to it. And like Doug said, creating those additional buffers, along the neighboring properties that butts up to, was something we were looking for.
Okay, yeah, that was another concern. I don't want to talk about it now because I've already taken up too much time, but as much buffer zone as possible, especially for our property, which had really the smallest buffer zone, between the development and our house. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
It's, I know there's a lot on that map, but
Oh, with the
it's
bond.
hard, there you go. I don't know if you can read it where your property is. But,
So,
It's,
yeah, Doug, if, I don't
Yeah,
know
so
if
if
there's
you
a way you
look-
can show
so
it.
if you look,
this is our, oh, you're there, okay. So this is the easement across my
so if
property.
you look right here,
He's got the cursor on there.
that's the proposed area. Chris can confirm. That's a proposed area that would be dedicated to the town, directly behind your property.
We changed the line, and that became part of lot 17,
Yeah,
which.
and part of why we needed a variance.
Which
for
will
the
be
lot.
the town needed property, because they requested that.
And then lot 17, Chris, I think, kind of looks like this, all the way back up into here,
Yeah.
and then back over here.
Yeah.
So that these properties also have the same buffer owned by the town behind their properties.
Okay, the planning board supervisor indicated that. They wanted that.
So, like Chris is saying, I mean, between Valerie and Supervisor Gier, a lot of this came to fruition, and Chris and Tom and Scott all agreed to it. And that basically made this lot a non-conforming lot, but it gave it also gave this lot really a visual, a deep quote unquote forever wildlife because the town will only maintain this.
That's why we went for the variance, because to create this buffer that you're talking about, not just for your property.
Yeah.
But the property's not owned.
And when we talked to Chris, I mean, the feeling, all the rest of these lots, this lot, in essence, still remains a big lot because this is all gonna be a wooded area.
Right, yeah.
So it's not even, for the people purchasing it, it won't look like it.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Sure, just so that you get a full picture.
Yep.
I disagree with the option to have the town do the maintenance on the ponds and drainage ways. So I just wanna let you know, Valerie said her position, I think the town board is in favor of that, I am not. So, just to let you know,
Okay.
but I'm just trying to vote.
A point of clarification.
Yes.
So I was under the impression, and we had the last meeting, that the aeration of the ponds was agreed to.
That
It
was
sounds-
my understanding.
Yes.
Yes.
So now I'm understanding that it is not necessarily agreed to, it is, or we look at as part of the overall plan, if it's required, we put it in. Aeration,
It's currently not required by the technical design of
I'm not
provided by.
sure, we would have to check with the town board.
so what I'm saying is, the aeration is usually because you don't want to have standing water, right there. That's the main reason. And we had had a lot of concerns about the Tripoli and all sorts of stuff, and that comes in from standing water in essence.
Mhm.
What I heard Chris say, is that you guys you wouldn't be putting in an area, or you're looking into putting in, and you said it was probably solar.
Possibly.
And Doug, you said.
So David, let me finish. What needs to be understood is the New York State DEC regulations for stormwater ponds take all of what you just said into consideration.
Correct.
Therefore, right, in the town of Manlius, every stormwater pond we put in takes that into consideration.
Understood.
Therefore, there has been no need. If if Scott's, Mr. Freeman's design is negligent and does not include the DEC regulations, then he may have to put mechanical systems in to create that. What he's shown us to date indicates that the mechanical systems are not needed. Now, if this board feels that you want a mechanical system in there and the town wants a mechanical system, then you should request that.
What's the
What?
downside?
Beg your pardon?
What's the
What's the
downside?
downside? It's a heavy burden for the town potentially to maintain and operate those systems. If you look at what is done over at Erie Village, you have to go in, you have to maintain those on a daily basis, they trip the breakers, you have to turn them back on, they're not operable in the winter, right? You have a meltdown, you put them out, when you bring them in, when you maintain them, who's maintaining the electrical, who's getting billed the electrical, where's the electrical meter, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that go into that. But I mean, if that's something that the board wants for aesthetics and, belts and suspenders
Yeah,
design,
that's exactly what I was gonna say.
right? I mean, that's fine, that's your prerogative. But, I mean, Scott can speak to it. The DEC requirements, which he's attested that he's designed to,
Yes.
already take that into account.
Okay.
I'd like to, can I say one thing?
Sure.
This is not the first board we've ever been to, this is not the first subject. This question comes up many times. We've called up the New York State DEC representatives and said, why are aerators not in your design? Do we need them or do we not need them? They
They said what Doug said.
What's that?
They said what Doug said.
More than that. The pond depth is 6 feet deep. According to the DEC, if you can get to 6 feet, 6 feet is a deeper depth, so it allows the water to stay at the temperature. And that enables, that limits mosquito growth. That's the DEC's explanation. So if you can get 6 feet, to Doug's point, we get the volume that's required in the book, which we have, that's design is under review, we're waiting for final comments. It checks all the boxes according to DEC.
Okay,
A lot of times it's used, Erie Village, a place where there's a lot of traffic in the front, they wanna make an amenity. It's an amenity, that's a want, it's not a need. So that's, like I said, that's, that you're describing.
So go back to my only point that I was trying to make. Whether we need aeration or not, Scott, you mentioned that you were looking into a solar aeration system.
If we had to do it to get this project moving
I didn't
forward.
hear the word air, but if you had said that, that would be fine. My point is, if you're going to be putting one in, then you would be the owner of that. And there's no need for the town to maintain that, and put a requirement for them to do that. Is
No,
that-
we could do a drainage district now. Not
It's all part of
the
the
HOA
budget.
district.
Or who's putting in the aeration?
Well, we are, but it has to be maintained over time. Correct. And then it's a drainage district at that point, it's part of the drainage district, of which the town is the owner.
Because there's no entity other than the town to take that over at this point.
We'll definitely build it, we'll put it in, but as to after it comes to drain, I'm just being, after it's dedicated to the town then has that.
So just to get off aeration, if the growth, trees grow in there, the town has to take that down. If there's a pipe that's clogged, like a beaver or some animals clog it up with some growth, the town on a yearly basis has to come out there, look in the catch basin. If there's mud and dirt and that's causing the basin to back up, that's what they're gonna be looking at. They're gonna be looking at the condition of the access road, the turf, the growth, and keep the pipes clear and the swell clear. They wanna keep the water flowing through into the basin and then exiting. There's a series of pipes at different elevations that control the release to protect downstream properties. So that's what their job is. We're, like to Chris's point, we're building it, and then once it's final inspections and sign off on the stormwater permit, and we do a final walkthrough with the town engineer, we'll go down the checklist. If anything's not built properly, the contractor will have to fix it and modify it. And then once it's built and turned over and signed over to the town, that's when the drainage, that's like buying a house.
No different than the roadways, drainage easements, sanitary sewer.
There's a turning over, a
There's
final
a
inspection.
turnover.
Understood.
Which is what, Doug, we have it in other drainage districts.
So what about the overflow pond? It's not 6 feet.
Doesn't have to be. It's an additional storage area that we added to the plans at the request of the board. It's not required, but we added it because of the community concern, your concern, as an added storage capability.
Okay.
Was my concern.
Well, we'll wait,
Yeah.
do you, okay, are you all set?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the neighbors and including us and everybody can expect that there will not be any problems with the pond.
Sure.
And I'm encouraged, that the town will take responsibility for that and do whatever is necessary, that it won't become a health problem.
Okay. Thank you. Alice, would you like to speak?
Okay, so my point that he was saying it's not required for the overflow.
introduce
yourself,
Oh,
please.
yeah.
Name and address.
Alice Masso, I live at the same property as my husband, as he pointed out on the map. So, yeah, so the overflow pond will not be 6 feet in depth. So why would there not be problems with mosquitoes and dengue in the future, or West Nile or Tripoli from the overflow pond? I realize that overflow pond was asked for by the town, but that doesn't mean that it's not an issue as far as the shallow water that's not flowing through. There's two
I'm
ponds.
not sure if that's accurate. Doug, did we ask for the overflow? It's just part of the
I
stormwater
think they've done here.
prevention.
I believe that was proposed by Scott's group to address issues of potential storm, excessive storm events.
We put it in, we can take it out. We can,
Very right.
the current system without that overflow works and we submitted preliminarily to DEC, they said it's fine, but we added it because of the collective input that we received from the community in this board.
That was my understanding.
Is
Yeah.
it like
It's
a
a matter
wide
of
swale,
nuance.
or is it an does it have actual depth? Is it a backup area,
The
or an
overflow
actual?
area is
Because
called
that's
an area, not a pond. Is there a technical distinction between our overflow pond, which we talked about the irrigation system, and what is characterized on the plan as an overflow area?
Yep, that's what it says.
And so is there a
Not
definitional difference between the two in depth or?
Yeah, you wanna know what a wet pond is? A wet pond, is an area that's built where there's soil, where there's no infiltration. So the first 6 feet of the pond is wet, that's water. Then above, you have an aquatic bench, and then another 3-4 feet to the top, that's the storage. As the rain events come in, it raises and lowers and goes out a series of pipes that are controlled with crane to control downstream. That discharges into, there's two intermittent streams, one that comes from the Massa property and one that comes out of, I think, an old farm leach pipe or whatever in the field. They converge and that goes under Churchill. The overflow area we put at the intersection of those two intermittent streams, and it's approximately 3 to 4 feet deep. And there's a little choke point, and then it builds up, and there's some rocks, and when that fills up, it goes through the rocks and down the hill.
So everything from the two intermittent streams and the retention pond go through the overflow area?
Yep.
Okay.
It's fast. It's fast. It's most fast. I mean, the stormwater design in its essence, 20 years ago, I won't go long-winded on this, but back in the day, you had one big detention basin at the bottom for the whole community. Now, the newer thinking is to break it up. So before the water hits the wet pond, there's a little depression. If the water slows down and cools off, then it goes into the wet pond and has time to slowly release and gather, and then it goes out, and we've added this overflow pond. So we've added another slowdown.
But it is shallow. It is shallow, that area. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay, go ahead, Alice.
All right, so the plants they have for these plants, for the wet area, wet zone, is that for which pond is that for?
It's wet pond, it's for the wet pond.
It's for the big one or for the little one and the big one?
It's the big one.
All right, so I noticed you have soft stem bulrush. So bulrush is a problem around here. And I was wondering if you would consider native species, which I've worked with the Tree Commission Sustainable Management on native species, so I could provide those lists to the board and to you. I would not suggest using bulrush. I don't, anybody has a wet area, which I do in my yard, bulrush is a real problem, it's invasive.
Yeah, I
It's
think
it's on the DEC list, I'm gonna use it unless the town engineer tells me not to. If it's not on the DEC list, I'll remove it, but as a courtesy, we can change the species if, after the engineer's review, he thinks that's warranted, but I don't review the plans.
Alice, if you want to send it in to Lisa and then Doug, you can take a look at.
Yeah, so native
And
species,
communicate back to Scott.
native species do help restore habitat. Birds can return, amphibians can return, if they have native species. So builders often buy large lots of trees and that comes from somewhere else in the country, even somewhere else in the world, because they can buy it in bulk and it's very inexpensive. That's not the best trees and shrubs and plants to utilize in our area, which this forest behind us that they call weeds and trash that they had removed to keep the deer out, actually did have mixed mesophytic forest that had been there for many years. And so I'd like to see that replanted with native species if possible. And I would certainly be glad, I have a list of native species trees right now, the board would like it. Because they did have some
I think
Norway
we
spruce.
received it. Lisa,
This
I
one,
think we have, yeah, it looks very familiar.
right, Eastern white, well, it's because it comes from DEC.
It's a
so-
PEC from that.
Yeah. So they also have white pine, which now is suffering from diseases because of warming of the climate, whatever anybody wants to call it. But eastern white pine is suffering now and is not a good plant to use, even though you can buy it in bulk cheaply. Okay, so I suggest not using that. Okay, so there were letters, I was reading some of the letters from neighbors before, and neighbors in Caracol Lane talked about once the construction took place, the people in houses below the new construction area started having wet basements and flooding issues that they could not deal with. So if that happens, because it's the same topography, it's the same type of layer, rock layers, it could very well happen that there are some wet basements and mold problems in some of the lower houses along Church Lane and in this development. So would the town have to address those issues? Because it would be a drainage issue.
Let me ask you a question. You said after construction began, people were getting water in their basements. What construction?
Dolly Farms.
Dolly Farms,
Oh, yeah, we existed on it.
it's the same level, it's the same topography, same underground layers.
I don't know. I haven't seen Dolly Farms in here. You seen it?
But we've had letters and addressed, we've had a number of people come from the Caracol Lane, Shiraz Lane area and speak to us. I have friends that have wet basements and they've had this big, one of those wet ponds where they try to, then it would fill up. They've had people come from ESF to try to help them address the problems of the flooding into their basements and around their lots. And I can provide you those letters from the people that live in Dolly Farms. So to assume, so what makes it so it doesn't happen there? Hope Lane is going to stop it all?
So it's my understanding the stormwater is going to be constructed first. Yes. So the stormwater prevention will be constructed first, and the town will be monitoring that before the construction of the homes.
Right, some plans by an engineer, approved by DEC, by the town.
I'd just like to note that the DEC plant list does include Bull Rush. That's a community concern, we'll change it, but we work with the New York State DEC manual and it's never.
I'm frankly surprised because it's invasive.
I'm just saying I work, that's the standard I'm held to.
Well, my daughter had to work pulling it out of areas because it's an invasive species. It would make major problems for communities, and that was her job. She was a planner for the state of Vermont. But, okay. Anyway, so I just wondered if there were flooding issues in people's homes or mold problems, would the town be addressing those? Because, and then we get to the idea of the sewer. Now sewers are now taken over by the county, is that correct?
I think it's been that way for some time.
All right, so if the grinder pumps, the forced water grinder pumps that are gonna join up with the gravity fed sewers around Shiraz Lane, if those malfunction, now the grinder pumps have a warranty for 2 years. So what happens if there's a problem with those forced grinder pumps after that point?
That's the people's problem who own the house, right?
So it would be the homeowner.
Yeah.
There's a battery, the owner has the choice of buying a battery backup.
There's no difference in a
Or a
septic
storage
system.
system. Yeah.
It's all over the county.
It's a pump up, it's very common.
Okay, so that the homeowners will be made aware that they are responsible for maintaining those grinder pumps.
I believe that at one point we had said that we wanted it on
On the
a
plan.
subdivision plan.
But it's actually.
So we'll make sure that it's on there. So when someone buys a lot and we get a survey, that will be out.
It's on the plat plan for the town board request.
Yeah, because people don't always know.
Yeah.
Right, that way they know, so then if they
Find out.
malfunctions, they don't have, they can't.
So that's
touch
checked
it,
out.
They can't use it disposal. Okay,
That's done. Okay.
all right, so, I guess that's the main thing. There were some other issues
So you
about
got that.
backup for the sewers that was going to be addressed. Okay,
Can I ask you a question?
sure.
You see, they've done a lot of research on it, so it's neither for positive or negative against it, project or just going on. You have water issues right
No, I mean, it actually,
now. It doesn't go down both lane.
I'm not up by code, I'm above the property here, on Churchill Court.
Oh, you're on Church.
I'm
So
on
then
Churchill,
the
not
opposite.
Churchill, but Churchill Court, it's a
Yeah, I know where
circular
it is.
area, okay, so I'm the last house on Churchill Court. And there is water that goes through, there's an easement across my property. And it does carry a large volume of water, so the previous owner actually built a scenic bridge and, 2 little ponds and stuff using that water that was coming down the hill. And we do get cattails and the bulrush that are a problem. And so that is an area that's not, it functions well, maybe not so well for people downstream.
Well, that's my point. I'm asking is from the standpoint of, it's always, trying to always compare to perfect sometimes. We always try to do that. Reality is what we're doing here with the storm, with the control and stuff. An improvement on what exists right now without a development, or is it worse? That's my question.
I don't see, it's certainly not an improvement for us in any way, the people who live on the south side of the property. They're actually going to dig drainage swales along this border where the blue line is. And that's going to destroy the large trees that we have on our property.
We
So-
addressed that, right?
So you have to have a clearance around the large tree, a tree that has a 40-foot diameter has to have 80-foot clearance around it, and I don't think they're proposing having that.
I don't know that that's necessarily always.
It has to have the clearance around it.
It does, but not that much.
Well, I could provide you the guidelines from the DEC if you like.
Careful, she's a landscape architect.
I studied landscape architecture and horticulture myself, which I have a master's in, so, all right, so the trees, the older trees, their roots do need to be protected during construction.
Yes.
So,
As much as possible.
Nothing at a minimum beside the drip edge, I think is the requirement.
right, okay, so if that's,
Your property is protected by that buffer.
no, the buffer's great,
So your trees are gonna be good.
I really do appreciate that, thank you very much. Okay.
What do you do for mosquito control? You
I mean,
water.
hold on. We'll let you speak in a minute, sir. Are you,
We have a lot of natural vegetation, so we have a lot of birds, we have bats that eat the mosquitoes, so we can sit on our back porch because it's a natural habitat, because it hasn't been covered with concrete, that our mosquitoes are not a problem. And we do thoroughly enjoy the birds and the wildlife. So that's why we moved there, that's why we bought the property.
thank you, Alex. Anyone in the third row that would like to speak? Okay,
That's beautiful.
Hi, KB7815 Kirkle Lane, Dolly Parks. Thanks to the planning board for everything to find a way. I know it's not said enough. And I appreciate, as I said to Tom before the meeting started, how much work they put into their plan and this latest incarnation. I was listening to the news today about 5 years since COVID, which remind me of when we started with SARS-CoV-2, we never heard of the virus before, and they called it de novo, which means new, fresh, never seen before. And then I heard de novo used by the planning board that you were looking at this like it was new, fresh, and never seen before. But it's not. It's not new, fresh, and we've seen it, most of it before, with some amendments. Same plan being wedged into a difficult property to develop, which is why it's taken at least 8 years from conception, and probably longer. And so it does raise the question, why are we even here again talking about it? Now, what entitles a developer to a second bite of the apple from a planning board or a town? First of all, I think you have to be in good standing. You're a tax-paying citizen in business, right? Well, the records show that until you were about to have a meeting in September,
the property taxes weren't paid for 4 years on this property, including tens of thousands in fees, $180,000 unpaid tax bill. The 2024 school tax did get paid on time, but they're already late on the town and county tax of $12,000 that was due at the end of January, according to the records that are available. Also, the developer owes his last attorney $22,000. Tom Larry may remember, he was in here passionately saying that this project was the way to go, but he has an unpaid judgment of $22,000 for not being paid for the work he did. Then there was the lawsuit at the end of the 2021 session when the planning board said, no, this project doesn't work for good reasons, that the stormwater runoff wasn't being controlled. There was a conflict with community goals about cluster development, impact over cut and fill. In fact, in the lawsuit, the developer actually insulted Doug Miller, who's clearly a top-notch professional. We all see that just by his explanations tonight alone, and the town in general. And they said that he falsified and misinterpreted facts. The town's denial of the project said that the developer was so egregious that the town owed the developer damages. They were suing you for you saying no to their project. Suit never made it to trial. It kind of ended. I don't know what negotiations took place, but the outcome of the suit was that all sessions on this round be in public, full view. Last September, well, actually 2023, September 11, 2023, Joe Lupio is still the chairman, and he said, this applicant has brought before this board plans previously that resulted in litigation and lawsuits against us. That fact will have no bearing whatsoever on our determination or decisions. It will have a bearing on how this is conducted. This meeting is being conducted before our full board here, so there'll be no accusations about what was said or not said to the board. The planning board, it seems to me, has followed that process. But what's going on with the town? Suddenly in the last meeting in early January, the town board was mentioned a lot. The town has said yes to this. The town engineer Miller just said the town is essentially in agreement about this district. Having a drainage district that's now the responsibility of the people instead of the developer or the people who choose to buy these what are likely to be $1 million homes by the time they're built.
It's not a responsibility to the people and the surrounding properties unless they're part of whatever the drainage district is determined they will be part of. And the homeowners will not be part of an HOA running the stormwater, but they will be paying in through taxes.
So just the
into drainage.
16 lot owners?
Yes,
They'll have their own drainage district.
no,
Right,
it,
that's the road.
but it's not the people's, Doug, do you know?
It's however big the
what
drainage
kind of
district
the
is.
drainage district is, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen the map.
It's not necessarily the.
Right, so people on Churchill, for
Surrounding.
example, Holt Lane, the Burnses, the Britons, maybe the Masses and Church, could all be part of the drainage district.
No.
Or who is downhill from
It could
it.
be an extension of an existing water district,
Sure.
or it could be a water
Right.
district also.
So that's one added cost.
Special use, I should say.
Yeah.
Special
The other piece would be what you're already talking about, that regular maintenance by the town. That's not good. That is the town taxpayers. We pay for the highway department or the water guys or whoever it is to come in and do that work. So instead of it being the people that were part of an HOA, for example, which I understand there's issues with that too, but there's really nothing more crucial to this project than how they manage the water. So how did this issue get lifted from your power as the planning board over to the town board in meetings that aren't being made publicly? That's what I'd really like to know as one of many questions. And if there are going to be public issues with the town, why are we having a public hearing on this tonight? And so I think request number one is, no matter where we end tonight or what time everybody gets a chance to talk, this public hearing can't close tonight, because we know that there's going to be a town board meeting at some point where they have to discuss some of this publicly. They at least have to vote on
There
it.
will be a public hearing.
They have to have their own public hearing. Then we'll know what that decision is. Then we'd have to come back and say, well, we have some other thoughts now that we know a drainage district is actually going to take place. So there's more debate to do on that, and ending a public hearing after an hour. Anybody who was on the board 5-7 years ago when we met before, we had to go to a firehouse because so many people were upset about this project in Manlius, which is a very nice firehouse, I gotta say. Then there was last week's meeting by the Zoning Board of Appeals. I follow this stuff really closely. I watched the meeting on tape, so to speak, from Facebook, and realized it was a public hearing. But not till I watched the meeting and you said, well, we're having or not you, but the people in the same seat, ZBA, we're having a public hearing. So I reached out to the clerk the next day. I said, was there a notice of a public hearing? She did send me, to the credit of the clerk, of course, the Eagle newspaper clip that says in font .8, there's a public hearing tonight. But what's not on the agenda for the zoning board of appeals, apparently for the last 5 years, is the words public hearing. Planning board does it great. Compliments to you. Tonight it said public hearing. There was notice. We got letters in the mail. The zoning board of appeals met last Thursday to decide on lot number 9's variance without saying on their agenda, there's a public hearing tonight. That's violating New York State public meeting law to make a decision. And if one wanted to, you could go back and look at all those zoning board of appeals decisions that have been made without telling the public you're having a public hearing about it and say, that's not right and probably not legal. So I would say, as another request, the vote taken on lot number 9, which was not thoroughly discussed by the public, and on a meeting night where they weren't told there was a public hearing, that should really be rescinded. That's easy, and delay that till they could have a proper public hearing in the zoning board of appeals. I know Jamie Sutton was there for that. The rest of you, it's not your responsibility. I also want to get into the other economic viabilities of this project. On multiple occasions, planning board members, ZBA members, the public have commented on making changes to the maps. Scott Freeman is great at making maps. But whenever the changes to the maps are suggested, the developer and the team kind of winces like, oh, we can't do that. And somebody at a recent meeting said, well, if the cost of changing the maps and printing new maps is too much, where are you in terms of getting this project done? I mean, maps are maps. I know there's professional quality, they're very big. You could talk about doing them half size instead of full size. But the cost of the map should be quite incidental. So we have unpaid taxes, late attorney fees, and unable to pay for extra copies. But there's still more. You've been working on the garden project on Hybrid Street, PUD, plan unit development. Planning and town board go through plans. There hasn't been any progress on it in about a year. At the time, a business owner in Liverpool owned the project. But now it's Hybrid Senior Living Property. Who is that, you wonder? Well, it's Tom Douglas and William Osikowski, who owns the Hogue Lane project. Last May, this LLC, Hybrid Senior Living, borrowed $980,000 for 1 year to become the owner of that property at 12%. That rate seems a little high, doesn't it? And quarterly payments of $29,000 per quarter due upon June 1st. So then you have to get back the million too, plus the 120,000 plus. Considering where the market's been going lately, I wish I had the security of a 12% investment, but it does raise that question, like what's going on with finances and is stretching further into a new project that is a hallmark development for the town while trying to get this sophisticated project with these expensive plans done. Is that a good idea? And now let me get to the merits and then I'll wrap up, or at least some of them. You know, Alice Maston knows 1,000 times more about the details of this project than I would even want to. I don't know what Glen Rush is, and I didn't know, I get that right, Bull Rush, see, I already got it wrong. But Bull Rush is and whether it's approved by the state DEC. My first concern, and we can talk about water in a second, is the crest of Hogue Lane or Hogue Road, depending on what you call it. You come up the crest, if anybody's driven it, walked it, and you get to Shiraz Lane now, and you take a left turn into Dolly Farms. Well, the plans, as I understand it, would be you take a right turn for a T intersection there into the new development, Woodland Hills, or whatever the name ends up being. To me, yes, not a huge volume of traffic, say 2 or 3 cars maybe when we have, even in Dolly Farms, we have driveways with 5 cars in it these days for kids and stuff. That's a whole nother story. But the increased traffic and having to look both ways for where the traffic is as you're cresting a hill is inviting danger that just doesn't need to be there. It's a simple planning change where the driveway is now for where Tom's house is. Just go in there. It's 40 yards up the road. You no longer have it teed. You have more visibility. You have a flattening of the road at the top. You have a way to do that. So that seems to be a very practical suggestion that would be easy to do. And I also want to go back to just the county planning commission, when it did review this project back in 2018-19, they suggested a second entrance to this development for public safety reasons. That was dismissed because it was difficult, probably expensive. We know the terrain drops off in what's now called Lot 17. But it also seems like a really good idea that should have been explored further. Instead of having a loop of a neighborhood with only one way out, you know, I can distinctly remember the Labor Day storm. I think some of you are old enough to remember that, right? Some of you, yeah, 98, trees were down everywhere, including Hogue Lane. And you couldn't get anywhere. But I could get out of Dolly Farms because I had two options, the bottom or the top. And we got out and probably went to Wegmans. And they didn't have power, so then I think I just went to work. It also praised, though, the cluster development as the way to go. The future of development, it preserves more natural species and trees and land. And then one day, the trees were all cut down. With the planning board, I think it's in dispute over who said it was okay to cut them down, whether somebody's notified or not. But suddenly they were down, and that now that's just off the board. No cluster development because we're going to routine subdivision
Matt,
because the trees aren't there.
respectfully, you're at about 12 minutes.
Yeah, but I'm not even nearly as long as most of the other questions. I got two more paragraphs. I'm still concerned about the water. I don't need to go into that too much. But I do have a concern that even with a scientifically engineered piece, that once the ground is cleared, once the construction is underway, once we're essentially looking at dirt in that area and rock, an unknown level of rock, that water's gonna rush down the hill and cause problems. So just to wrap up, where to go from here, I think the town board needs to be having public sessions about a drainage district. ZBA, in my opinion, needs to revote what they voted last week because and certainly at a minimum in the future, put 2 words on every item that's a public hearing. Say it's a public hearing. And I would suggest keeping this public hearing open tonight because those things are still outstanding. And as somebody asked already, the town board hasn't decided the drainage district. Well, if you just make it contingent on what they do, then the planning board no longer has a say. So, you know, as I said in the beginning, sure, there's new things here. And as I mentioned to the team that's producing these documents and plans, I know they've worked hard on it, but I still see there being a lot of shortcomings. And it's okay to say no to the plan and just leave the land where it is. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, can I ask Doug a question?
Yes.
Hey, Doug. Doug, you said a couple times like a drainage plan report or something to that
Matt,
effect. Yeah, what is that? Because you said it includes costs.
Yeah, so
Is that maintenance costs?
to put a special use district together, in this case, it would be a stormwater special use district. The map, plan, or report, so the map would include the meets and bounds of the parameters of the district.
Yeah.
You know, is it the 16 home, you know, the 17 lots that we've been looking at, with one lot being dedicated to the town? Or is it an amendment to another existing special use district? So that, you know, that would be the map, the plan would be, you know, what are the costs, how does it get maintained? Generally, that is always done with a SWIP. So in this case, the SWIP would be the basis for a lot of that.
Yeah.
Right, and in the SWIP, this would say that, you know, the properties that we're talking about would either be their own special use district or amended into another special use district.
Okay, let me get the specific that I want to ask. This basically lay out the maintenance costs going forward for this property.
Yes.
And so we don't know what that is yet. But the town has agreed to accept it into their maintenance.
My understanding is the town wants to move forward with a special use district. Town would operate and maintain. That's what I understand. What they need to make that decision is the map plan and report that lays all those things
Which is
out.
from the developer.
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't have seen,
And we're waiting for input to complete that.
But I guess,
and I've seen bits and pieces, so I mean, what Chris is
We're working
saying.
on it. It's not,
Okay.
it's not
where I'm going with this whole thing is, I'm concerned that the town has somehow approved, wants to move forward with, wants the town to own the land that's with the ponds and so on, but we don't know what it's gonna cost. Am I reading it right?
I think we have an idea what it's gonna cost, right? And we've looked at this project in the past. We generally know what it takes to maintain and operate a drainage district of, 16 homes. Okay, it's probably,
This is not the first district.
no, it's not.
It's an extension of the district. We have the obligation to provide the town the costs, the town has to review those costs for the town board. We haven't gotten there yet. And we're working through it.
I think the thing is missing, what the homeowner would pay for this through the town taxes, that's apples done, I think that's.
No, it's-
Well, that's what you put together.
Yeah, it's included on the tax bill and it's spread among the homes. It's all being figured out. Dave, the town board has never, we haven't had a public hearing on it. But you have to look at, the reason we're going that route is because you want a homeowners association that potentially could fail because you're spreading this cost over 16, 15 lots.
We have,
Not just the cost, but responsibility.
The responsibility, but then it goes to cost.
Trying to
then
find
it-
people that-
only
trying to
two
find
options.
people that had
It's
enough.
not only two options, and that's where we're missing.
okay,
Is it HOA or is it the town takes it out? These are the two options that you're playing. The third option is, we want to do the project because we don't think that the town can take on that responsibility. And the maintenance situation that Doug mentioned right now, that we can't maintain, it's very difficult to maintain. That could be another option. So we're not asking for, either this or that. We're trying to figure out what the cost is for the town. Can the town actually do that? And will that money that is required to maintain and for that district get distributed to only these 16 lots? Or is it going to add also the taxes to the people that are surrounding it because the area is large? These are the questions.
No,
The,
no.
the map plan report may indicate that it brings down the taxes.
Okay,
Yeah.
For
So
the
it's
others,
good,
right?
but that's what we're discussing.
And if you're here or listening and you're not in a drainage district right now, and you haven't purchased a home from Tom Douglas in Woodland Hills, you will not be in this drainage district, correct?
No. And I know this is, yes, there is that third option.
It's not just that.
But my point is,
Right.
it's not like we're
They're
disregarding,
not in a drainage
we're
district
in the
already.
process of doing this.
No, you're not disregarding it. I'm saying these are the things that we're discussing. I want to clarify.
Absolutely, and
Okay. All right, we're gonna stop. We need to continue with the public hearing.
Okay.
We'll figure that out. I must have misspoke, but it was my understanding, and Doug, I'm gonna have to clarify that if the town board will determine the drainage district ultimately, and if they want to accept it. That is not the planning board.
Correct, but the recommendation, right, the recommendation has been that you would like to have a special use district for this area. And the town board has been receptive towards that, and the applicant, right, has gone forward anticipating that. So, to what Mr. Mulcahy said, I believe the town board at some point, I'm not the town attorney, but I would anticipate that there's gonna be public input at some point for what's being proposed,
Yes,
right?
yes,
And-
there will be a public hearing.
And this is no different, this is really no different than doing an HOA. The costs are gonna be exactly the same. The town is gonna have the ability to go in, even when you have the HOAs, exactly the same.
Doug, I disagree.
I'm
If
just
somebody
telling you.
drowns in that basin, who the parents of that child, who do they sue? The town, if we own it. It'd be the HOA if we didn't own it. Now, more than likely, they sued everybody, but they'd be ultimately responsible, not the town. And that's,
I'm not an attorney, I don't know.
I know, but that's one of the concerns I have, is that this should opt out.
I'm just telling you how a special use district works.
I'm sorry. I'll keep my mouth shut.
And my question, because I want to clarify now if I misspoke. because if this is set up as a separate drainage district, my understanding was that it was be just these homes
Yes,
in the district.
yes.
If it's an extension of an existing drainage district, would they be adding new homes that are not in it already? Other than these
But,
16 homes?
I mean, we have three districts,
Right,
right?
Right,
So let's say we added this to District 3.
Yeah.
Right?
so
Then,
whoever's already.
then you would, right, so you would
They're
have,
not contiguous.
so you would have,
I don't know what you're talking about.
you would have District 3. And you would add 16 homes, the cost for District 3 probably wouldn't be impacted at all,
Right,
because of, right?
right, and but I'm saying if you're not in a drainage district right now, if you're not in drainage district 3 right now, you're not gonna be part of this.
Correct.
drainage.
Correct.
That's what I was trying to say,
Yeah.
like, it's not like the masses are gonna be in this if they're
And
not.
it's a special use
That's what I was
district,
trying
right?
to.
So the
clarify.
cost impact
Right.
here, right, would be fully, paid for by those lots right there,
Right,
right? So the people contingent next door would not be.
okay,
I think
that's what I
you're
wanted to
correct.
clarify.
The costs will go up because there's additional, but you're saying the impact on the tax bill will not be, it could be reduced for all that matter. The 16 homes are added.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
If you added it to an existing district,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
It doesn't have to
Okay.
be a specific one.
Yeah.
It could be one, it could be two, it could be three, it doesn't have to be the district that's right next door to this
Right.
either.
That's not what I was saying.
So that's what I'm adding, that they can manipulate these things to make the numbers come out fair.
Right, but they're not going to pick and choose homes that are not in a district already, is what I'm trying
And
to
that's
say.
a bad word, right? It's highly likely that this would be District 4.
Right,
Right,
Exactly.
and the cost that would have been borne by the HOA, instead of going to the HOA, will be on a tax
Yeah.
bill. Because the town will hire somebody
Right.
to maintain this.
Okay, thank you. Well, all right, that discussion's over. Next to speak in the public hearing, the following row behind Alice. Is there anyone in the 4th row? Okay, the back row. Is there anyone in the back row that would like to speak? Sure. Please say your name and address when you get to the podium, please. Thank you.
I'm Pat Gotcho, I'm at 401 Churchill. I'm at about the lowest point below those retention ponds. And I'm really worried about the overflow that's still gonna exist, that's gonna go down into my property. My property gets a little wet, the overflow comes. There's a drainage culvert, whatever, at the end that goes under Churchill, that's got cross rebars on it. Small kids and dogs out. Periodically, I have to go clean that out with a rake and a hoe and all this stuff, because town isn't fast about getting it cleaned out. Who's gonna maintain that overflow? How are you gonna widen it? Are you gonna do something with it? How are you gonna get on there to clean it? We are on septic. So if that whole thing comes crashing down the hill, there goes my house. There goes my septic field. I'm done. What kind of things are gonna be in place to prevent it? And this is all taking place, the storm basin before the building of the houses?
Make sure you're talking to the board.
Okay, well, okay, if this all takes place before the building of the houses, that's gonna be taking place first, these storage spaces. Who is responsible for damages at that point? Is it the town?
What's
They would,
developer when they're
I mean,
building it?
if they dig
They would
and
not
it
have.
fails and my
They
house
would not
goes,
have
who's?
deeded it over to the town at that
I'm
point.
not an attorney,
Okay,
and
I'm
Jamie,
not either.
but until that land is transferred over to the
Yeah.
town, it's the
So
developer.
it's all on you guys.
That's how it works.
Yeah, but they have an engineer working for them. We have our engineer reviewing it.
Well, water
And it's
comes
been
down in the
reviewed by
spring,
the
it goes under
DEC.
the culvert, it goes under Churchill, and it floods neighbors' lawn across the way. Because the tunnels or whatever that go through there and continue it on down towards FM Road aren't big enough, cleaned out enough, or whatever to contain that water. And you get a spring like now with all the snow we've had, that's gonna run like mad. There's water sitting in Churchill now because the drainage isn't proper with the way the new road got paved.
So the general way that this stuff works is that that basin is there to capture the increase in runoff, so that
And lets
there's
it out
no
slowly.
target, when the water leaves the site, those basins are designed to mitigate the increase that happens because it runs off more, because there's more impervious surface, houses, roads and stuff. So it gets released out of those ponds at the same time.
Had, do you have a visual of the land? Have you seen like photographs of it to see how it's set up?
Yes.
Because it comes like this.
Yeah.
So you can put your drainage over to here, but it's still gonna come down here and it's still gonna run to Churchill. That's what your overflow is. That's not gonna get better, that's not gonna get eliminated. So who's gonna maintain the overflow portion? Is it gonna be widened? Does it need to be? Is it gonna be cemented because the ground is being washed away now from just spraying water damage? No. Who's gonna take care of that?
The parts on the property will be part of the drainage district or the HOA or whatever is decided, and those will be maintained under that contract. Nothing will be done to the other parts of people's property.
So the overflow will remain just an overflow, and what we get, we get.
Doug, do you know what she's specifically speaking to with this overflow, and is there any response?
I'm not sure, but I know in the general area of
I know you're
town
familiar
has,
with Churchill Lake.
yeah, I know in the general area the town has existing infrastructure. I know the town is currently under contract to look at that infrastructure, according to the highway superintendent,
Separate from this.
separate from this.
And they do, they drive by in their little truck and they go, yeah, it looks good, and keep on going. Because I'm the one getting out there with the race.
Okay.
But that's,
Yeah, we can.
if that little red line goes across the top there, that's your intermittent drainage, and that's what goes into the culverts then, and goes under Churchill. But I am concerned about everything that leads up to that point, because I am just above that red line, and that's where that curve in the valley and stuff takes place. That's gonna come on my lawn, that's gonna fill my septic. And I'm gonna be done. So just things you need to think about as to how this is gonna take place and what actually happens. It's nice to put it on paper, but the reality of the situation in water and how water can move is different. So just consider everything, please, when you're taking a look at this.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else in the back row?
I'm Susanna Clipper. I wrote the letter earlier, so I won't go into that, but I'm the neighbor of Pat. We are right where she said, properties aren't even identified on here. We are on the front line of the failure of this. My question is,
What's your address again? I know you said-
403, I said 403 Churchill.
Speak up.
If in the event, my understanding is building the homes is going to be contingent on the performance of pumps. Is that right? They have to be approved by the town engineer, DEC, a number, this is what was, I identified zoning, I went to the zoning meeting Thursday night. I just want to confirm that with you guys, yes, that's the case. If it gets to the point where these ponds are built and they can't be met, be performed, what happens then? These guys walk away? And if so, what happens to the ponds?
I think you might be a little bit confused.
I might be, because I'm here for clarity.
So it's all one project, but the ponds are coming first because that's how it's phased. Phase one is to build these ponds because they will act as the temporary detention during construction. And then as part of the construction project, at the appropriate time, they'll be converted over into their final form.
But that's my point. What if that doesn't happen?
That,
What
I don't
if,
know
what's the
ever
question
happened.
here?
That has to happen, because we sign a piece of paper for the New York State DEC's notice of intent, that we intend to do stormwater. The developer signs it, I sign it, and the town supervises the construction of those things.
I hear a lot of words of intent and
It's just the name-
uncertainty,
it's the
okay?
name of the
What if
form.
it doesn't happen? I'm playing
No, it
devil's
has to happen,
advocate.
we can't start construction until we get the.
That's my point. What if it doesn't happen, are you willing not to construct the home?
We have.
And if so,
We put
at
our-
what point is the town gonna take it, what did they do? Because this could be 10 years for these homes to be built. You're talking that it's gonna be 16 homes that can bear responsibility of this.
Basins,
Pardon me?
that won't necessarily be attached to the function and construction of the basin because of how the project is built from a construction phasing standpoint.
And Doug, the town is involved with you, codes enforcement, et cetera, during the whole
Yeah, so,
process. You
so
can
the
explain
intention,
that
I
just
keep
a little
going
bit.
back to the map plan report, right? And that's another thing that would be in the map plan report, is that the intent of this developer, based on the
Yeah, there's that
discussions.
word. There's that word intent. I
No, let me
understand.
finish, okay?
Sorry.
So there's a map plan report that has to be developed. The discussion that the town has had with the developer is that lot 17 is gonna be dedicated to the town. It will be in the map plan report that that property will be town property when it's completed. And what I have seen from the stormwater pollution prevention plan is that is the first thing to be constructed. Now, when you look at the map plan report, I would anticipate that the map plan report is going to say, when construction starts, that will be constructed, and at the time it's finalized, that will be dedicated to the town, it will be in place before any construction starts, and it will be town property. I don't know that as a fact, and that's something that the town board has to work with the developer, but Mr. Danaher has told us that he and Mr. Freeman are, deep into this process. So once that map plan and report comes together, I believe it will address all of your issues. That's why this board is asked for a public hearing to get input to the developer, to get to the town, to get everything that you folks are looking for into the plan.
And as far as we're concerned about like the construction period and everything, that's monitored by codes, et cetera, during different phases of it and during different periods. So if
Understand that.
something if something were is failing or is not working as it was intended to work, that is caught in.
And to the credit of this board and the town supervisor, they've heard a lot of your concerns and they felt, right, and it's just my observation, they felt that with the town having control of lot 17, it would put a lot of your concerns to rest. Because you can now come to the town, and the town can say, hey, we'll send somebody out to do it. And oh, by the way, keep track of the costs, and the costs will all be open book. So on a continual basis, your costs may go up, they may go down, but that will be something that is borne by those people in that 16-lot subdivision.
Okay, maybe I'm not clear, because those are, that's what you're saying, but those are planning issues, that you're trying to cross the Ts, Is. My devil's advocate here is that you've done all that, they come and construct the ponds. And for whatever reason, because the topography of any number of things can go wrong, not all things can go wrong, if we can't anticipate everything. So things go wrong, what's the recourse here? Do they walk away, or is the next stage of building homes, are they denied? Because with all the, even with all the planning, it just can't, it can't be done, we don't know.
So what I would believe would happen here, because you jump in, is that lot 17 is gonna be constructed for engineering control. They're gonna certify that it's put into place. They're gonna have an engineer certify it. At that point, then they can start building homes. At that point, I would anticipate, and I don't know, I'm not the attorney for this, okay? So I'm not an attorney, but I would anticipate at some point that it's turned over to the town. Probably at that point, when they start to build homes. If the thing fails, once the town takes it over, then the town fixes it. If it potentially fails before that, the developer fixes it. Right? It could fail, right? It's highly undoubtable that it will. They've got a series of engineers. They've got a geotechnical engineer. They've got a landscape architect working on this. I mean, you can foil everything. They've got all kinds of different professionals that are first class in the area that have done a good job on this. So it's highly unlikely that anything is going to fail at this point. But that is the intent of the town, to get a municipal special use district here with the town controlling lot 17.
I'll go back to my original question before. Again, is there a separate contingency that if this doesn't work, that there has to be another, I don't know, another vote or another approval that the homes can be built?
Well, it would require a site
Or is it
plan.
all part of one?
It would
You guys
require-
approve it now, subject
It would
to
require a
like,
site plan amendment of some sort if necessary. That's when it would come back to this board.
I think
But
we're,
I'll let Chris.
well, Doug, if Doug said, the stormwater is being done first. The construction of that, it's gonna be certified by our engineer. It's gonna be inspected by the town. We're not gonna make the next step, which is the step where we would make money, which is develop the lots. We can't pull building permits until the stormwater's done. We're not coming back in for subdivision again, but we can't go to the next step. We can't pull a building permit to build a house until the stormwater's done.
that's the key though, until, so at what point do you say, it can be done, we'll walk away? It's not gonna happen, we'll walk away, because we've been here, what, 7, 8 years, and nobody's walking away, so. at what point-
Why would you think we're walking away?
Because if it can't be done,
Why can't it be done? It's been engineered. We've had DEC look at it, these guys look at it.
you live, I guess you live in a world different than I do, that there's not always 100%.
Well,
And I heard a lot
I
of
agree
words
with
that
you.
they intend.
Absolutely agree.
Let me give you
I absolutely agree.
if the storm is done and it's not working, and they're gonna move on, what would you do? There's no additional water that there is right now. It's not gonna change. The only reason there's additional water is because they will be developing concrete and roadways and roofs that is creating more water that can be absorbed, that's now being absorbed by the land. So at that stage, if it doesn't work, you're not worse off than you are.
You might actually be better off.
Stormwater respect.
I'm not suggesting, I'm not making my point clear, as to if it becomes that issue, what's the protection for not building the homes? I'm not saying,
I would say nothing. If it gives you this thing that you're constructing, then that's it.
It's a privately owned property with stormwater system.
I guess the developer's gonna be financially.
And there you are.
have
okay,
trouble.
that's what I wanna hear. I wanna hear that
Then
that's a responsibility.
And some third party comes in and gets the value. the idea
But
that-
if, no devil's advocate, if it does become worse or past my property, what's our recourse at that point?
There's no becoming.
Because
worse.
water's gonna do what it wants to do. So
No,
you're saying
not
it might
actually
be,
true. You can tell it what to do.
right, but it's gotta be told the right way,
It's
right?
gonna go to the law.
So that's the uncertainty here. We don't know if it's gonna go the right way.
We don't, yeah, there will be a lot of, I think you have your answer, I hope.
I do have an answer, so it's on record and we'll see what happens. But again, I don't think we could say it any better than Matt Peggy said it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. Thank
Is
you.
there anyone else in the room that needs to speak before we look for online participants? Anyone else wants to speak? Please, I would like to please ask that just new information is brought at this point. We've heard a lot.
Yeah, I'll be very
Some of the same stuff.
I'm Wally Merriam at 5347 Oak Lane in Suffolk. We personally are not interactive with the drainage, but I do know when we moved into the area, the homes on Shiraz Lake had a lot of drainage problems. They put a big French drain at the lower edge of our property. to alleviate that.
Which
I
house,
think
which
they
one do
still-
you live in?
But
Which house is yours, all the way at the very end? Okay, thank you. I was looking at an area.
we're concerned about the traffic. We walk along that area all the time. Because the 16 home, it's gonna be a lot of traffic going in. There's no sidewalk going down Oak Lane. It's not just me that walks, it's everybody else. Including Tom, he walks. So,
And I'm concerned about the private homes. Happens to be losing it. That wouldn't affect us first time. We're both the drainage problem.
Thank you. Appreciate it, thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hi, everybody, David Britton, 5270 Cove Lane. I got one quick selfish point and then the more important community points. I live in the upper left. There's 3 properties in the upper left. I'm the one like closest to the gray or bluish gray. This is swale. So the quick personal request is along the property line where I believe the property line is, there's a bunch of conifers. A lot of them been there for many decades. And swale is planted right along the edge of the property there. And as you know, a lot of conifers have roots that go out far, but not really deep, unlike like oaks that do a tap root. So between the property line, I think I know where it is too, near where my house is, going east, is 57 feet to the nearest mature tree. So what I'm hoping will happen as a request, make one request is to just move the swale east, even just 10 or 15 feet would save a lot of mature trees, right? And there's, I don't think it would damage any of those other properties because you keep going 57 feet, and there is a big well with trees, you know, goes north south between the house and me.
I thought they had made some concessions about trees.
We added 13 trees along that tree line, 5 of which are in back there.
Right, so they're adding trees, but the swale was not a gradual continuous slope from Old Lane south. The place would have to do filling or grading, and if they're grading next to like a white pine that's, you know, way tall in the house, if they're grading down a few feet, that could kill the pine and it's gotta go down, which would be a shame. You know, there's already some natural screening there. There's a lot of, mostly all conifers along there. Just move that swale a few feet to the right, you could save those trees. So that would be the personal request. That would
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Now to the things about that are more general and probably more important. I understand why developers want to build because that's what they do. It's their business. They make money by developing and selling properties. That's fine, right? But as you probably noticed, there may be a few neighbors that are in favor of it. Most people are opposed. So I made a quick list. I'll just zip through some of these that have not been mentioned before of reasons of why people are concerned. There's the construction noise will probably go on for years, and I don't think anybody's mentioned blasting, but we don't know if the pond would require blasting or not to get 6 feet deep.
We dug tested.
I was gonna say.
Extensive holes.
Right, how
Yeah.
far deep did we go?
We went all the way.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of the basin.
Yeah, that's been looked at.
Right, so I'm not worried about the foundation, I'm worried mostly about the pond.
Right in the middle of the pond, we dug a hole, and then the pond moved, and we dug another hole 6 feet away from the last hole.
I hope you're right.
Triple check it.
I hope you're right, I hope you're right. Okay,
There's a formal report on the website, you can look at it, all the
Right.
holes, all the depths, all the recordings.
Yeah, I saw it. My impression was that it wasn't.
Truthfully, I did anticipate hitting rock at some point. We hit large cobblestones, but we never hit that.
This
Okay.
was previously a quarry, wasn't it?
There's a lot of quarries in that general area.
Okay. I thought before that it was a quarry.
There are quarry areas in there, yes, so I think Doug Burns has, Sue Burns have a map of where Rocket and Doug.
That's maybe where I'm getting at from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
The traffic's been mentioned, no sidewalks has not been mentioned, so it's a bigger problem in some neighborhoods. Reduced green space, I think people in the neighborhood appreciate the green space. Alice mentioned some of the trees and things she's worried about. I like the turkeys, I like the red-tailed hawks, I like the pileated and pileated woodpeckers. And there's a pair of great horned owls in that area now, which will probably move on, which is very cool. They listen to them calling each other at night. We got fox, we got bobcat, we got bats, all that would be impacted. There's a question about negative impact on property values of the surrounding homes. So that's something that we're worried about. Sewage issues, I think that's gonna come up. Mostly's got, he's an architect, he's got some special knowledge about that. We worry about the increased flooding, as Dave mentioned, we've got driveways, roofs, and roads, so there'd be more impermeable area, so there'd be more runoff in the development area. So that's a potential issue. The hope is that the pond will take care of that. But one thing that's not been brought up about the pond that I wanted to talk about is there may or may not be a pond. There will be a hole in the ground because we're gonna have contractors come and dig a hole in the ground. If we're lucky, we don't hit bedrock, and that's great. But right now, Mother Nature drains this area by two streams. One that goes behind Winter Burns Britain property, comes down on Churchill, that's that creek. And then there's the creek that comes off the Manlius property and swings down. It's going approximately north. Neither of those streams is gonna feed the pond. So where's the pond gonna get its water? It's gonna be just rain runoff from the developed area. So if it hasn't rained for a couple of weeks, is there gonna be any water in the pond? So a lot of ponds, if you do the development, it's built in a marshy area. If you dig down, okay, it's wet down there and you get yourself a pond. But a lot of areas where there is, like for example, that area where the pond is significantly higher elevation than the creek behind Britain Burns Winter, and it's higher than the outflow from where the Manlius house is. So it'd be hard for them to dump those creeks into the pond. We don't know what will happen with that pond, because Mother Nature's already figured out where to send the water, and it ain't where the pond is now. Now, with that development, will there be enough runoff, will there be enough rain to fill that pond? Maybe. My bet is it will be approximately 1 acre mud pit, okay? And we talk about bubblers and things like that. It's hard to bubble mud, right? So I could be wrong. I told people for 1 semester hydrology in college, and that, you can tell by my hair color, that was a couple of years ago, right? But there's a reasonable chance, I think probably more than 50-50, that if they dig that pond, it won't be a pond most of the time. What somebody mentioned, a lot of snow melt. If you get a good rain, a lot of snow melting, that pond's gonna fill up, it'll be great, you can bubble it, it'll be beautiful. Hopefully no kid will drown in it, we were talking about before. But in a typical summer, my bet is that pond is gonna be a mud pit. And if it's a mud pit, you can't really bubble it, and it's not gonna be, the monsters are very concerned, as are a lot of other people, about mosquitoes. We don't have dengue yet, but we have West Nile virus, and we've got triple E in the area, so that's something that I'm worried about. And you can't bubble, whether it's a laid wire or a photoreceptive, whatever, to run a bubble. You can't run a bubble in mud, right? And my bet is it's gonna be a stagnant mud pit most of the time. I could be wrong. I guess it or not. If it's built, I hope the guy I'm wrong. But that's my big concern about that pond. So, any questions about what I was saying about the water runoff and creeks?
No, thank you.
Yeah, so
I
the
do have
creeks,
one general comment.
Yeah.
You mentioned sidewalks, and Mr. Merriam, you mentioned traffic walking and sidewalks, everything. I just wanted to let you guys know, because you are a group that comes together very well, that the town does have an initiative out there for sidewalk districts. So if you feel strongly like along Home Lane, that would be a good place for sidewalks.
All line with Walnut Street.
Well, it could be something to look at, because there's concern for walking on Hope Lane, so that's what I'm hearing. And they're doing it on Enders Road, it's a project, it's something that you guys could take a look at as a communal group, so I'm just putting that out there, because
right.
it sounds like you love to walk, and the sidewalks would be great in the areas that you're talking about, so I just wanted to let you guys know that.
Okay, so.
Okay.
They have ways of doing
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah.
There's stone walls are part of that, the large walls.
But then
Yeah, but it
they
would
do a map
be-
plan and report.
Yeah, so it's something to look at if you guys want to, yeah. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to talk before we look online? Okay, Lisa, do we have anyone online?
I have a bunch of people online. If you're online and want to speak, please use the raise hand function.
Okay, so we have one more person, and then we'll see if anyone raises their hand online.
Yep, hi, thanks for having us here. My name is Garrett Slutsky. I live a few houses in on Muirfield Drive, a few houses in from Hope Lane. So I see a lot of the drainage going by. I have two concerns I'd like to address. One of them is the planned sanitary system. I don't know exactly why you've chosen to do what you're doing. But from my experience, I'm an architect. Most of my work has been institutional projects, although I'm not an engineer. I've seen things like this, projects that have developed things like this before. It seems to me preferable for any sanitary system to depend on a 100% gravity system. To me, it doesn't make any sense to depend on electrical, mechanical components, because there's always a problem, possible problem of failure. It could be failure within a single residence, or it could be of a component, or it could be that the power's down, battery backup, just not do it. I'm not sure what the thinking was on, I know there's a grading problem, but maybe one solution would be to have some municipal sewage and some septic. I'm not sure if the property is big enough, but it seems to me that depending on a system that depends on mechanical, electrical, is just poor planning. I heard not too long ago someone mentioned the idea of having an interlock system where if there's if the system fails either within a residence or a larger area, having an interlock that shuts a supply of water down, that to me is a really poor solution, because now you're leaving either a single residence or a group of homes without a supply of water for an undetermined amount of time. If a mechanical electrical system were to be considered, from my experience, the only way to do it is the entire system should be fully redundant. Thus, if any component or any part of the system is compromised, there should be at least two independent sets of the following components: sensors, like float sensors, electronic beam, or whatever, to detect the height of the effluent, two pumps, emergency backup generators running on fueled by pipe natural gas, not tank propane, not propane, not gasoline, certainly not battery. It has to be continuous power. And so I would recommend, I can't imagine doing anything other than having two of everything, so that any one part of the system fails, you still have an operating system. And in my experience, if the effluent is so high and so quick, the second pump would come in. But in any case, the entire system should operate regardless of which sensor or which pump or which backup is inoperative. So that's my concern. I'm not sure. They just asked the question: have septic systems been suggested to cover the few houses that can be handled by municipal sewage?
I don't know if the Doug or anyway.
Scott, maybe you can speak to that.
My name is Sean Lacey, architect, I'm a civil engineer, RZ Engineering, uses the E1 system. We've used it on other projects, and we submitted the entire system to water environment protection, and they support what we have. The developer, Tom right here, is planning on offering each homeowner a redundant system, but a redundant battery backup and a pump system. Other than that, I have to take my questions back to the engineer.
Unless you're looking at a massive battery bank, I think you're talking about 2 hours of battery backup. And if anybody that lives in this area knows, several times a year we'll have power outage. Sometimes it's only a half hour. Sometimes it's half a day. Labor Day storm, and those things might happen more and more frequently. I think we had power scenarios that were out of power for several days. Does that mean there's no sewage collection? Does that mean those people don't have water? I mean,
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Is it common now for most new builds to have of this level? I see you listening. Most new builds to have a backup generator built as part of construction? So would it be reasonable that those are hardwired gas and could be, or electric, like, would that be part of that
At this
system?
price point, probably 90% of homes that I built today have generators.
And would it be possible to connect them?
Yes.
Does that solve the concern?
Yes.
Well, no, because I'm talking about 2 sensors, 2 pumps, and 2 generators. Generators fail also, especially if you're talking about generators.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry? All right, well, imagine this, imagine the power's out and you can't flush your toilets, or things are backing up, and effluent is either spilling into the ground or going down to the properties below them that are either within this development or the people who already live there down the hill from them. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, a simple solution, if for some, and I don't know enough about the zoning and so on to know how much area you need these days to put in a septic system. But I live on Muirfield. Every house on Muirfield, as far as I know we do, has a septic system. I don't know why they haven't suggested, having a hybrid system where, how many houses are required, are not getting on municipal sewage?
They're all.
A handful.
4 or 5.
All right, so why not put them on septic?
If I believe, and I'm doing this from memory, they aren't large enough for lots. If you're on septic, the lot needs to be larger than what we've got in the book.
It's in the code that.
Rich, you're right.
is in there.
And you have to do field testing, undisturbed.
The lots,
Grade,
the lots,
where disturbing a lot.
the lots.
By the time you put the drainage easements in the road, there's not enough.
Well, right, well, and again, so my concern about the sewage, I don't think that's a good solution. I don't know what else to say on that. My other concern, is, surface water. We've heard several people talk about surface water, so I'm not gonna go over that too much, but I can tell you from personal experience. There's a lot of surface water coming down Hope, going into backyards. If you look at Lower Hope, just below Muirfield, the water will be coming down the north side of the road and then crosses over to the south side of the road. And that part of the road is actually being undermined by the flow of water. I get water in my backyard, the 3 or 4 backyards on Muirfield, on the side of Muirfield, get water. Fortunately, nothing gets into the basement, but we get a nice duck pond back there. We actually had ducks, our dogs love it, but we don't. And my memory is I've lived on Muirfield for about 25 years. And my memory that's only been the last 10 or 15 years. I think my understanding from what I've heard is that about 10 or 15 years ago, there was an attempt to mitigate some of the water going down Hope by intercepting it and having to go through some of the backyards there. So they tried to solve one problem, another problem was created. And in my personal opinion, nothing should be done on this project. The project should not be approved until our problem is fixed. And part of the problem that we're facing is whatever happens on that site is likely to create a worse problem on Hope and anybody else that's off that side of the street. Changing the grade, putting in hard surfaces, building houses that have roof drainage, that you're concentrating water, is probably certainly going to change things, and it might very well make it worse. And the thing is, these projects should not go forward until I think the oil situation is fixed. But in addition to that, so some really good studies are done as to how much water would be flowing and in what direction and what the impact will be. And therefore, that might inform the developer, the town, as to what mitigation should be done before further work is done.
Okay.
One other point. Whatever pond you have, if there is any depth to it, I I cannot believe that I see ponds like this that don't have fences around it. At the end of Muirfield, there's a, I'm not sure if it's a detention or retention pond that was reconstructed, some 5 or 10 years ago. Sometimes there's no water in there, and sometimes there's a lot of water in there, but there's no fence around it. There are little kids, there are dogs, there are people. If we had a swimming pool with 2 feet deep, I don't know what the requirement is, we would have to have a fence. So there really should be a fence around there, and there certainly should be some kind of fence around anything that we're planning on here. But my concern really is studying this before it's built and having outside third-party engineers look at what the impact of houses, hard surfaces, changing in grade, roof runoff, et cetera, will have on that property and all the properties below it. Pretty much all I have to say.
Okay.
But thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone online?
I had 2 people with hands up and then they went down. If you still want to speak online, just use that raise hand function.
Okay, while we're waiting, was there anyone else that I missed that would like to speak? Okay. Okay. Okay, so I would thank you guys for all of your time and research and comments and questions and concerns, et cetera, for sharing those with us. I know it was mentioned as a suggestion to keep the public hearing open, but we have entertained everyone here. We've provided plenty of notice for the public hearing. We've had an online opportunity here. If we close the public hearing, that does not mean that people cannot still submit public comment through the town, either to Lisa or, through the channels that have already been done. So I would entertain a motion from the board to close the public hearing.
I'll make that. Second.
Okay. All right, motion made by Arnie. Second by Rich, or vice versa. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, David, okay. All right, motion carries, the public hearing is closed. Thank you guys, we will take all of this, and there's other stuff that we've got to work on, but thank you for attending tonight and for your patience, sitting through the beginning of the meeting and after all of that, so we appreciate it, thank you. Okay, I do not have any other business.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion made by Rich to adjourn, second by Arnie. All in favor? All right, thank you. Motion carries. Meeting is-
Open the lower door, the lower parking, because to come up the driveway, the sidewalks are all